Okay, we are recording. This is the real deal this time. We did a couple little practice bits. Howdy, everyone. This is Ersatz Cats, or just Walter if you prefer. I got on the line legendary gaming referee Robert Mruczek from the old Twin Galaxies days. Still up to stuff, still around. Really quickly, before we get into it, I wanted to say I've got a lot of complaints about the audio on the last two interviews I've done with Robert Mruczek. It always sounds fine to me. I think what's going on, so I'm listening through my speakers, and I think what's going on is other people are listening through their headphones, and then one person is a lot quieter than the other, and that makes it just really hard to manage, whereas it always ends up sounding fine to me. I did look into trying to, figure that out for this interview, and I had it almost done, and then it just didn't work out. It's actually... last one I did through Skype, and so I thought, oh, well, I'll go through Skype again, and I looked it up last night, and Skype doesn't exist anymore. I didn't even know that. So, unfortunately, and because of circumstances, Robert's got to be on, a dial phone, so I have to, dial, and then I have to record on the computer. We're just going to do it, and hopefully the people who want to listen to it have a way to listen to it. We did a couple sessions, so it should be about as equal as we're going to get. Go ahead and say hi, Robert.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Mruczek from Brooklyn, New York, former Twin Galaxies chief referee. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am Ersatz Cats, and I don't have, I guess I run the blog, so I guess I have some qualifications there. Not as many qualifications as you have.
I'm just one of many former referees.
Yeah. Yeah, you were the head honcho for a while, though. I mean, other than Walter Day, of course.
For 4.5 years, yeah.
Yeah. Last interview we did was 2021. It was actually, oh my gosh, it was right after I started that blog with that big video game fraud of the century project, and we talked about that project last time I had you on. So much has happened since then. Oh my gosh. Let's start with your deposition. You were deposed in the Billy Mitchell versus Twin Galaxies lawsuit. Just start out telling us about your experience with that. I know you were questioned by Tash on one end and Christina Ross, one of Billy's lawyers, on the other end. Tell us about all that.
Well, for starters, I had to take an entire day off from work for this, so I lost a vacation day for it.
Ooh.
The whole thing from start to finish was an estimated 6.5 to 7.5 hours, inclusive of breaks. Tash's session probably took up 1/3 of the speaking time, and Billy's lawyers took up the other 2/3 of the speaking time. It wasn't bad, but once Billy's lawyers got started, it got a little repetitive with certain questions, and the nature of some of the questions were, pardon my French, retarded. And I quite honestly, it took a lot for me not to snap back at them, but I never lost my cool during the interview, and I don't think I said or did anything that could be damaging to Twin Galaxies, but at the same time, I did manage to get across all the points that were asked of me in my own words.
Yeah.
What's the best way for me to sum it up?
Oh yeah. What's one example? Do you recall one example of a question that you thought was asinine?
Well, for example, one of the points that Billy's team, kept making was after the events of the 2005 ACAM, when Steve Weave showed up in person, got his 985K, and Billy sent in his tape of the 1.047 million, which Walter, against the better opinions of his attending referees, including myself, decided to enter into the TG database, which I took down within 48 hours after that. Billy sent me an original of that performance, which Walter actually said he was doing in one of the Twin Galaxies archived forums dealing with the King of Karl. Billy's lawyers were asking me, how do I know that that was Billy's performance, and how do I know that Billy sent it?
Right, yeah.
Well, for starters, I'll do that in reverse. It was only point in time which had the potential for getting $1 million. Billy and Steve Wiebe. Why would Steve Wiebe send in a tape of the same 1,047 score that Billy Mitchell did? The very fact that they're asking that question was just retarded.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, they said, how do you know that Billy Mitchell sent that tape in? They said, well, Walter Day said that he was going to send it in, and the tape came in the mail. Why would I assume otherwise?
Yeah.
Things like that they were asking. It was honest to God, they were just trying to look for holes in anything I said, anything, no matter how small, just to rip it apart. That's what they were looking for. And they didn't get any.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a damn shame that, as I understand it, my deposition was not part of the final jury deliberations where they got a chance to hear it. At least I was told the jury didn't hear it. It's too bad because I did not paint a certain Florida-based gamer in a positive light. That's for sure.
That's right. Well, you got to remember there was no jury ultimately because it was ended in a settlement, which I definitely want to ask you about at some point. But so it ended up just kind of being something internal.
And it's definitely not the outcome that a lot of supporters of Karl Jobst and also people that were sick and tired of Garrett Bobby Ferguson wanted to see.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that the way that's turned out, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I understand. What are your thoughts on the Twin Galaxies settlement? How they ended up settling, and they didn't put his scores back up, but they used the word reinstated, which is obviously would have been something that Billy would have been like, no, you got to use that word. You got to use that word.
I disagreed with it. The
Yeah.
decision, of course, was Jace Hall's. He runs TV. He's free to do whatever he wants. I was not 100% supportive of that because that's effectively placating a worldwide liar at this point.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
I do not think that should be done. Second of all, I was completely annoyed at the fact that Billy launched a lawsuit against Jace after the settlement because Jace gave a 3-word response, 3 separate words of one word each to 3 questions posed by David Race. And
Right.
for that, Billy went after Jace Hall, which was ridiculous. That lawsuit should have been thrown out. And with all due respect to Mr. Tashrudian, he was not the pit bull that I was hoping he would be.
Mm.
There was so much that could have been done for Karl's case, but mistakes were made on both sides, and unfortunately, the judge was not the brightest in that he sided with a lot of what Billy said, which was, quite honestly, flat-out BS, to the point that some of it was even a lie. And I can say that because it was. It's not a matter of whether it was, it's a matter of it was. And the judge was able to accept it for what it was. I don't want to say the judge was starstruck, but I will say that the judge did not understand the material as well as he should have. Tanner Falcon's analysis should have been first and foremost the number one driving factor to prove that Billy did not do what he said he did. And the fact that the judge allowed that jackass Zaida,
Oh God, yeah.
his opinion, his so-called expert opinion, that was the worst possible witness that could have been brought into it. I mean, that's the equivalent of Dr. Nick Riviera giving a medical opinion from The Simpsons. The guy was a quack.
It really was. I was the laziest one page of like, well, this guy said he brought the girder finger, so I believe him. It's just like
Unbelievable. That judge, in comparison to what Tanner Falcons came up with, the judge should have said, what the hell is this?
yeah. The judge, so it was Judge Wendy Chang on that case, and she didn't really rule on those statements, but she did, unfortunately. Billy was just lying through his teeth in testimony to the court, and she's just like, oh, I don't know, just let it go.
I really hope that in the Australian court, with the magistrate assigned to the case, that it didn't come down to a matter of how well Billy lied, how convincingly he lied, because if that's the case, that's a sham.
Yeah, I think
Judges are supposed to be smarter than that.
I think it kind of did, although Karl didn't do himself any favors. He should have issued a better retraction, and also of the Apollo settlement stuff, and also he was a bit too much braggadocio, like, oh man, I'm gonna be a terrible winner. Like, bro, you can't say that. You can't say that.
And that's another thing. I don't like to, pull punches when I speak. Karl made some tactical mistakes, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, in that he was practically boasting at some points with some of the things that he said in advance of the settlement, both early on and right before it, which he should have simply kept his mouth shut. And again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. He did not, as you said, put a strong enough retraction. It was kind of, well, I'm sorry I said it, but. You should have left the but part out. And a couple of other things. He just simply should have just waited for the legal process to play itself out, because Billy capitalized on the fact that he was harping on it to the point that he monetized it in some capacity, and he seemed proud of what he was doing. And that, unfortunately, worked against him. But that does not diminish the truth in the case, and yet the judge did not see the truth in the case. The judge was more convinced about Billy's, whatever his version of it is, his anecdote, as being more reliable, more credible than Karl's. And that was bullshit. It all came down to personality, and however Billy promoted himself while being deposed, while before the judge, that unfortunately won out. And that, to me, that's not really the legal system the way I would have hoped things would have progressed. And it's definitely not the way it would have progressed in New York.
No, I hear you. What do you think about, because there was Billy sent those text messages to Jace and to Carlos about Apollo Legend, saying like, oh, I hope you find something confirming that he's dead. I will not shed a tear, that kind of stuff. What do you like? It's shocking that didn't.
And here's another thing. I read some of what you wrote on the post-verdict matter.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that Billy is probably going to say that, well, I didn't write that, my son did. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you wrote something Billy Jr. handles most of his posts, his wife handles Instagram, so Billy can always say, I didn't write that.
Yeah, the text messages from his phone, I think he'd have a harder time arguing that, and he admitted in court that he sent those. But yes, the stuff on Twitter is a little harder to gauge our authorship legally, but it's his account with his name and his image.
Yeah,
so
you can always say, my son took my phone. I mean, the guy just lies.
It's true.
Lying. Everything with him is, I didn't do it.
This is true. He could just straight up, nope. Someone took my phone. Yeah, you're right.
And quite honestly, I think that this was his intent all along, to have a buffer against the fingers pointing directly to him.
Yep.
It could always be said, well, my son said it. Sue him. What do I care?
Yeah, exactly. And then his son might get in trouble, but, that's the way narcissists work.
Yep. But the judge in this case, the judge did not, in my opinion, base their ruling strictly on facts. I believe that the judge's ruling was subjective, and as a result should have been challenged immediately. But I don't understand Australian court processes both before and after a verdict is reached, as well as I do those in the United States. So I don't even know if it could be challenged.
This is true. And Karl so I don't know if you've seen Karl's big final lawsuit update. He had an opportunity for appeal, and he was seeking it, and like a super duper lawyer, which they call a King's Counsel in Australia, basically just gave him a big tongue lashing from the sound of it, and he decided, no, appeal's going to go nowhere.
That's a damn shame.
It is, yeah.
Well, I hope that his current lawsuit fares better.
Yep.
And it would be poetic justice if the outcome of this would be that dollar for dollar, everything that he was ordered to pay to Mr. Garrett Bobby Ferguson, that the judge will issue a ruling equal to that dollar value, where effectively one has to pay the other back.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That would be poetic justice.
That'd be amazing. Karl has definitely learned his lesson from the Australia experience.
Definitely has. I only saw one post-verdict video on it where he discussed, the disappointment with the outcome. Beyond that, he hasn't gone into saying, well, what's Billy been up to now? What has him and his son been tweeting about now? Much to his credit, he has kept his distance from it. Whether he's dying to do something on it, I don't know. But I think the smart thing to do that he has now, a defamation lawsuit against Billy, the smart thing for him to do is, regardless of how compelling it might be to do some reporting on the subject, just keep his mouth shut and wait for the legal process to play itself out. That would be my best advice to him, and I hope he does this earnestly, to just keep it quiet and let things fall where they may.
And so far, he has been doing exactly that. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see how this plays out. The last time, as you know, the entire process was delayed repeatedly by a certain someone because they kept on saying they needed more time to prepare, which was a crock of shit, pardon my French. I am hoping that this process goes through more expeditiously.
I hope so too, yeah. But I think Karl's case is strong. There's some YouTube commentators that are poo-pooing it, but I think they're sleeping on Karl's chances on this one. But we've thought that about Billy before, so.
Yeah, but a lot of the people, and you know this, you've seen a lot of the videos of the people that support what Billy says. A lot of them are, like, in my opinion, they're fanboys or fangirls. They don't care what he says. They just flat out believe him. Why would he lie? And over here in the United States, we have the same problem with the MAGA zealots that no matter what Trump says, they believe it, no matter how stupid or ridiculously incredible it might be. They just believe it as dogma. Yeah. And I think the same people believe whatever Billy says is dogma. For instance, years ago, back when I was still on speaking terms with them, Billy told me, well before trials or anything like that even came up, Billy told me, for example, when he was releasing his various posters, I was asking him about the fact that he has the logo on it, which is the Pac-Man logo, and he said he had permission from the guy that runs Namco, or whatever the president of Namco is, the one that's got ideological control over the Pac-Man trademark, that he can do whatever he wants with it. And that to me is bullshit. There is no logical reason why somebody, the president of a company in Japan, would give this kid, well, then a grown-up, the rights to do whatever the hell he wants with their trademarked image.
Yep.
With no consultation from their board of directors as far as whether or not that image is something they simply don't want used. So what does he do? He slaps that image on his posters, he slaps it on hot sauce bottles, and whatever the hell else he did. I guarantee he did not get carte blanche permission to do whatever he wants the way he said it. But again, this is just Billy saying things to make himself sound more self-important than he actually is.
Yep.
It's his very nature.
Yep. You and I were talking about this. We did kind of a little pre-interview chat yesterday, and I think I was also talking with David Race about this exact stuff recently as well. Yeah. It's just such fantasy land, the idea that Namco would be like, oh yeah, you can use our trademark thing all you want. He definitely took advantage of the language barrier. Namco in Japan isn't necessarily watching everything that this guy in America is saying in English, Not that they don't have access to it, but they're just not, they're not paying attention to it.
It's like when he opened up that arcade in that airport in Florida.
Oh, right.
The so-called King of Kong arcade. I told him, how do you have the King of Kong name and poster at this arcade? Why would you do that?
Yep.
And he says, well, that's not the actual poster. I kind of had someone reverse engineer it. It's a piece of art. You don't reverse engineer art.
Yeah. He definitely lives by the philosophy of just do the thing and make someone tell you no. So like, he'll just do it. And he'll make Seth Gordon or Ed Cunningham tell him, no, you have to stop, and and they won't.
Who does that remind you of?
Oh yeah.
Florida-based resident.
Oh yeah, yep.
The parallels between the two of them are many, to put it mildly.
They've even had a weird up and down arc where like Trump was big, and then he got shit canned, and then now he's back, and then Billy kind of went through the same arc at the same time. It's weird.
Well, we'll see what happens. In my opinion, both of them from Florida are both schmucks, so let's see what happens in the long run. As far as right now, I don't honestly follow what he does. I don't follow anything on Twitter, no matter who's posting it.
All right, yeah.
I don't even have a Twitter account. I've never logged into Twitter, so whatever he's saying or not saying, I have no idea. I have no idea what interviews he's been giving, what pictures he posts, none.
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that there was a brief period of time after the verdict where he was boasting about the outcome, but what he's saying in the here and now, no idea.
Yeah, just a lot of continual boasting and mocking of Karl and stuff. And to be clear, like, I can't really get on him about that because Karl said he would do the exact same thing. So it's like, okay, turnabout, I guess. I do genuinely think Karl, sorry, I know this is your interview, but I'm just going to say, I do genuinely think Karl would not have gone this long, this far. He would have just gotten tired of it and said, okay, if he had won, he would have just said, okay, I'm moving on. I'm never talking about this guy again. Billy wants nothing more than to talk about Karl forever.
Yep, he just can't help himself. He's like President Trump with his revenge presidency. He can't stop talking about the 2020 elections. It's 6 years ago. And stop talking about it.
Yep.
Billy is no different. It's the same mentality. There's got to be something in Florida. It's got to be the water.
Yeah, not everyone in Florida is bad, and we'll get to somebody a bit later. But I don't want to get too out of order. But did you have any more thoughts on the Australia verdict? I think we kind of covered that. Other than that judge was just so gullible. That's what I put on my headline. He's the most gullible man alive.
The only final thoughts I would have on the Australian verdict is that the way it was worded, I would like to think that there is still opportunity for people to strongly believe that Karl got the shaft from the judge. Any sane person would have seen the totality of the evidence and come to that conclusion. Mm-hmm. But there are also some people that say, well, Karl lost. What else is there? They just don't think for themselves. I honestly wish that more people read the evidence and findings and came up to their own conclusions.
Oh, believe me, I agree.
In public opinion, a lot of people, they know Billy. They don't know Karl as well as Billy. But a lot of people came up to opinions based on, I could say it's being starstruck, or the way that some people, like zealous, they just treat whatever people say like dogma. I just wish some people would just make up their minds for themselves, and in case that their hero becomes a fallen idol, just accept it.
Yep. I guess we can move past the Australia stuff. What do you? Yours was not the only deposition in the TG case. Did you watch the Billy's deposition video where he's getting grilled by Tash?
I saw clips of it. I never saw the entire thing. I do know that when you watch Billy speak, and I've seen him, there was a video where he was talking before a judge in a bow tie. I saw that video. It was a separate matter.
Yep.
And I also saw excerpts of Billy's deposition where a lot of times Billy really wasn't paying attention to things. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, some of his one of the attorneys basically said don't answer that, or was trying to stop the way he was answering, because he kept on saying things that in the attorney's probable opinion is he should have just kept his mouth shut. Really just can't help himself, as with everything.
Yep, he can't help himself. There was literally like, and I was learning about the deposition process myself, but apparently, there's always a question on the table, and you wait for the question on the table, and you answer that.
Yeah.
And Billy would just start talking, and his lawyer's like, "Shut up!"
And if you watch his body language, and I'm not a body language expert, but his eyes are constantly darting back and forth. He's constantly licking his lips. And if this guy was to play poker, I guarantee he'd get his ass handed to him. He's got tells that are so easy to spot. If this guy is licking his lips, he's lying. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, with him, if he's moving his lips, he's lying at all. If he's moving his lips at all.
Yep. But honestly, I wish that the judge would have came to a more subjective opinion as far as watching this man as he was being deposed. Because if the judge was going to be subjective in their ruling without looking at the facts of the case, at least be subjective with respect to the two people or the primary people involved. Look at how they comported themselves. Billy was quite honestly, he was suspect in so many ways of not being honest.
Yep. And I don't think Judge Chang, the California judge, really ended up reviewing the deposition because they ended in settlement. But Barlow in Australia, that judge, he did review portions of it, and Billy just straight up lied, and it was just like, the Karl Jobst case is nothing compared to this as far as like stress, and then he turns around in Australia and says, no, this is the most stressful thing ever. The Twin Galaxies stuff was nothing. It just.
I read that Billy said he was experiencing stress, and I don't remember what degree of medical maladies because of it. That's more bullshit. That's bullshit.
There's so many passages when you go through Barlow's ruling and you know the facts. He's just so incredibly credulous. It's just like, oh my god, this is the guy that it all came down to. And I could have handled. I mean, I could have handled him saying both of you suck, but he decided to just go down on go hard on Karl and give Billy everything Billy wanted.
Which is the saddest outcome of all.
Yep.
The fact that Billy has, I hate to say the word won, but the fact that he got all of his wishes in this, including his still inclusion within the confines of the TG website, albeit as a version of the database, the fact that he's still there means he can still boast to people, I did this, I did that, I'm in the database. He doesn't have to put an asterisk at it, but he'll still say he did this and he did that. So effectively, his lies continue.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of weight behind the being in the historical database, because I mean, like, Todd Rogers is there, Rodrigo Lopez is in there, Michael Damiani's in there, like all these cheaters.
Not Rodrigo Lopez. I don't know the full extent of what was levied against him. I know that some of it was based on his scores on RPG titles, like the Zelda titles. But I can tell you for a fact, when he was competing against me on one of my favorite Dreamcast titles, three of my favorite Dreamcast titles, his scores were spot on accurate, and they were definitely not cheating. So he wasn't an overall cheater. But whether he cheated on certain titles, I don't want to say for a fact, because I don't necessarily know for a fact that he did or didn't. But I have to imagine that if other people who are more knowledgeable on the nuances of those titles said that something's not right, they're probably correct.
Yeah.
But by the same token, when Rodrigo was first submitting was an Atari 2600 score on Pitfall, he submitted as I remember, a time of 1 minute and 48 remaining, a perfect Pitfall, and that was the first criticism against one of his scores, saying that's impossible. He was using an emulator.
Was that Rodrigo Lopez you're talking about?
I believe so.
Right.
And then years later, somebody did the exact same score on an original. But nobody retracted what they said about his original performance being bogus. So before people just write off someone as being a complete
I got to be honest with you though. Like, I'm sure he looked skilled in his gameplay, but one of the issues with that Zelda dispute was that it was spliced, and they were able to prove it because of the.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. So it's possible to be a great player and to look like a great player, but then there's something under the hood that invalidates the score that proves that it was cheated.
Yep, that's true. That's true. I hate labeling a player as a cheater because they did one mistake on something. I hate doing that. But the fact of the matter is, for sake of integrity, the rules are the rules. If you cheat on something, your scores come down. It's that simple. The ideology is that, well, if you did it once, you may have done it again. And better be safe than sorry. Those are the rules. They are what they are.
Yeah. Do you regret handling... this is actually a question I had left over from our previous interview got cut short because I only had a limited window. I don't even remember when the Rodrigo Lopez stuff happened. Was that 2021 maybe? It's been a while.
Well, I believe it happened after I was no longer a referee, which, believe it or not, is now 20 years ago. I retired. No, was it 20? I retired in. I left TG, resigned 12/19 of 2006. So it's 19 and a half years I left TG. It happened at least 5 to 10 years ago, at least 5. I was not paying attention to anything about what he submitted that was incorrect at that point. I really wasn't paying attention anymore. But as far as the decision to knock his scores off, I do remember that back to back. I mean, TG took off his scores, Todd Rogers, Ron Corcoran's scores, all three of them back to back. I don't know if there was any others that they took off.
Billy, of course.
And Billy's.
Yeah.
So all of them.
I think those are the big four they did. Yeah.
If there were any others that they took off after that, I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention.
And there's a bunch of like lesser known players. Michael Damiani got kicked at some point.
He actually submitted scores to me, which I approved, and which I was incorrect in approving. I have to accept responsibility for that.
Yeah, it happens.
It was a knowledge base. I didn't have the knowledge necessary to realize that what he was doing was cheating. I admit it. And the scores had to get taken down. But that was as far as his Zelda scores, his Dance Dance Revolution scores, which I originally had him, which he originally submitted to me, which I watched in person. Those scores are legit. But his Zelda scores, unfortunately, as I found out, were not.
Yeah. I guess one of my questions I have is, did you have any regrets in your handling of submissions from Rodrigo Lopez and the others of Team Metroid in Brazil? And I guess that ties into your regrets about Michael Damiani.
Rodrigo's submissions to me, for what I did receive from him, I had no problems in terms of my decisions on them. What I regret is not catching anything that he did with his RPG submissions. I never had a problem from Walter Trabe, Cristiano Asumco, and there was one more, Carlos Kruger, the other three Metroid team members. I never had a problem with them, and largely, with the exception of Walter, their only submissions were on the Crazy Taxi 1 and 2 titles. Walter submitted, if I remember correctly, things on some other titles, maybe Blast Core, I can't remember. But I never had a problem with them. Rodrigo's submissions, if I made mistakes with the Zelda submissions, that's on me.
Yeah.
I never said I was perfect. I was far from a perfect referee.
Do you remember what the verification process was for the Team Metroid submissions? Like, was it just...
Well, for starters, it was on VHS tape. They had to send the tapes in to me from Brazil. So they came in the international mail package. That was for starters. They were on VHS. They were never digital. In many cases, like on the Crazy Taxi series, you may know that Sega Dreamcast had like a memory card that you could plug into your controller.
Yeah, and it had like a little Tamagotchi screen kind of thing or something.
Right. So a lot of times the playbacks in the Crazy Taxi Galaxy series were from their memory card playbacks, which is fine because I myself was with one of the top players on Crazy Taxi, so I had no problem recognizing those performances as being what they are. I had no problem with it. It was the Zelda performances that Rodrigo turned in that, as it turns out, was the problem. And I never had a problem with his Atari 2600 performances.
All right, yeah. That's interesting. I forgot that he did Atari 2600.
He did. Not many people know this, but I sent to Rodrigo at my own expense a bunch of Atari 2600 cartridges at some point when I discontinued playing on the 2600. I just basically shipped it off to him, including the console. I just gave it to him.
Oh, wow. All right.
At my own expense. I also, for competitive purposes, I sent him copies of, for the Sega Dreamcast and for the Microsoft Xbox, I sent him copies of the Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, Wacky Races for the Dreamcast, 18-Wheeler for the Dreamcast, Simpsons Road Rage for the Xbox, and Big Mother Truckers for the Xbox. I gave him copies of it, and what did he do? He turned in stellar performances on these that exceeded my own. I was very happy to see, from a creative point of view, how he figured out, in particular, how to beat Simpsons Road Rage in terms of the scoring challenges.
Yeah.
And he figured out how to marathon all 6 of them. And out of respect for me, the one that I had already semi-marathoned, that one he did not turn in a higher score on. But he did it for the other 5, and I have no doubt that he could have done it for all 6. He is a great player. It's a damn shame that the actions on one title or 2 defined him in the eyes of the TG gaming community.
Yeah, but then and that's the problem. It's hard to tell what he did cheat on because he never confessed to cheating. I only know him from the Legend of Zelda dispute, but he never confessed to it. He just said, "Mwahaha, I've got evidence that exonerates me, but I won't show you." And everybody who knows the game is like, "No, there's nothing that's going to exonerate you. Your item drops don't match," or whatever it was.
From a public relations perspective, the way you described his response was not the brightest way to handle it. But I can tell you for a fact, I will vouch for him for all of the other titles that he might have turned in, for the Dreamcast, for the Xbox. He had no problems with those titles. He was playing honestly and with integrity on those. So unfortunately, rules are rules, and it's the other titles that brought his downfall. Damn shame.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, it's always possible though that he could be splicing on some of these others. You know what I mean?
Well, I've watched those other performances. There is no way in hell you can splice those. Not on Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, Crazy Taxi would be kind of hard.
Yeah, I've watched those performances. They're all time-based, with the exception of the 3, 5, and 10-minute dollar-based challenges. So it's not the easiest. Not when you're talking about a large 3D environment. It is not easy to do that. And not just simply like Zelda, where everything is largely, it might be 3D, but you're moving straight ahead. You're climbing upstairs. Crazy Taxi had hills, it had water, it had bridges, and it driving through buildings. You can't easily splice things like that. You can't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're always talking about your negative experiences as TG head referee because there's always controversy. People want to talk about controversy, but I have on my list. What are some of your more positive experiences you had while working as a head referee?
Well, here's a couple of things that people don't know, and they're in no particular order. It's just as I think of them. One of my most positive experiences was being allowed to create and host the majority of the summer console competitions of 2001. Before I became chief referee, I asked Walter if I can run a Crazy Taxi competition, which he allowed me to. It was just 5 different challenges. Shortly after that, I became chief referee, and I hosted a summer console competition on 10 different titles, of which I hosted 7 spanning in excess of 320 different challenges. That was one of the highlights of my TG experience, was writing the weekly reports on all 7 titles, which you can still see on archive.org. I put a lot of work into that. I think I was working for TG, unpaid of course, probably 90 hours a week in addition to my regular job. I was only sleeping for about 2 hours a day at best.
Jeez.
For the entire, duration of the competition. But I did it because that's what I wanted to do and that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
When I went to the Fun Spot events, only the people that were there can confirm this. For the first couple of events where I was chief referee on the closing night, and all the people that were in attendance can confirm this, I, as chief referee for TG, was talking to all of them because that was my, home away from home was Weir's Beach, New Hampshire. And those were my largest circle of friends were the gamers from the Northeast Corridor and those in attendance. And I always enjoyed having a nice little send-off conversation on the final night. We always had a large-scale dinner on the following day or day before the end of my November vacation and on the May events. I always enjoyed that because, again, it's my home away from home. While I was chief referee, I used to have gaming in the cabin after hours during my trips, and I used to have anywhere from just a few people to, in some cases, as much as 20 people in my cabin. And in my presence, they were recording performance after performance on console-based games. And that was one of the highlights of my trip. I used to come home and do the write-up and say, okay, I got about 700 or 800 new scores in the TG database. I used to love going on trips and taking down scores. And people used to love showing up to the events because of that. I enjoyed meeting new people for the first time, which in my case was rare because I rarely traveled. But mostly I enjoyed coming home and seeing something in the mail that was unexpected, and it was a new world's record. One of the biggest surprises came from Malaysia. It was one of those skating-based titles. I don't remember if it was Top Skater or not. It was completely unexpected, but just goes to show you that out of the blue, world's records can come from anywhere.
Oh, interesting.
So I was always like Christmas, coming home and seeing all these boxes, opening them up, and what's the surprise to watch today?
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And then seeing the world's record was amazing. And one of the other little tidbits, and you can hear this in some of the archived performances, a few of the gamers at the end of the performance used to verbally acknowledge me, saying, okay, Robert, this is it. This is the record. And it was nice to hear my name as being acknowledged by these people because they knew damn well not only was I going to watch it, but I was going to do a write-up about it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's cool.
And the write-up itself, I enjoyed doing the write-ups. I made a decision early on that I was going to do a write-up on all, new world records. And a lot of people said, well, you only need to do a write-up on the big ones. But I was doing write-ups on records like Adventures of Lolo and things like that. Well, if someone took the opportunity to do it, I did a write-up. I wrote over 220 articles on New World's records for TG. And not all of them were on titles like Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong and things like that. Some of them were on very small titles. But the person took the time to get good at it and set a special mark, and I honored them by giving them a write-up. It was their time, in the spotlight, and that was my thrill as being chief referee.
That's awesome.
Doing something for the gamers. Because up to my advent with TG, and I don't mean to sound boastful by using the word advent, but up to that point, if you think back, how many people's performances typically got written up by Walter Day? One person and one person only.
Right, yeah.
I don't even need to say who that is.
Yeah, yep.
Because in one of the films I was in, probably Chasing Ghosts, Walter said, it's not just that someone got a perfect Pac-Man, it's because Billy Mitchell got a perfect Pac-Man.
It's because Billy did it, yeah.
Well, guess what? Lottie fucking da, pardon my French.
Yeah.
Especially now that so many other people have done it.
Yep. And people had done it before 1999. I mean, let's be honest.
And people have done it before.
Yeah.
It is, in my opinion, unrealistic to think that nobody previously had. When you think of Pac-Man, as a statistic, having 1 billion quarters piled into it, and however many came from the places with stellar gamers like Japan and China and Korea, places like that, it is inconceivable to think that a certain Florida-based gamer was the first person to get a perfect Pac-Man score.
Yeah.
That's arrogance, plain and simple.
Did anyone ever come up to you like at one of the events and just be like, "Oh my gosh, you're Robert Mruczek," and like shake your hand, thank you for all the work you did?
A few times, yeah.
Awesome.
Sometimes before the films came out, which made it even more special. After, of course, the films came out, there were some people that showed up to ACAM for the express intent of meeting some of the people in the film, people including myself. Sometimes seeing the people outside of ACAM, and I used to bump into people within the first 2 years of the films coming out. I saw them all over New York City. I was at train stations. I was waiting online in places to buy my lunch. I was on the train itself, and someone was there, and I was on platforms. I was walking in streets, and unlike Billy, who walks around with a mullet and a American flag tie, I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not as recognizable, but amazingly, people recognize me nonetheless, which I found to be amazing.
That's funny. What did they say when they recognized you?
Most of the people, when they talk to me, they just ask me general questions. They will say, for instance, what do you think about Billy? Or, do you think Steve got shafted? Or things like that. Stuff that the films don't actually come out and say. They let you come up with your own, explanation of what really happened. So, of course, I answer them to the best of my abilities. I haven't, been approached by people in a long time. I think if I was approached by someone within the last 5 years, that would be a lot. But it did happen frequently, and it was amusing when I used to be picking up my lunch or replenishing my Metro card in the train station with my friend at work, who's now my supervisor. He used to, as we're standing there, he got a kick out of people coming up out of the blue and just asking me, "Oh, is that you?" And they took my picture with them. They had someone take the picture with them, and he got a kick out of that because he just didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to make out of it.
Yep. That's funny.
I never let it get to my head, unlike Brian, what's his name? Mark Alpinger, who thinks he's the star of King of Kong.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that about Mark.
Oh, he has a very high opinion of his appearance in these films. He thinks he's one of the lead actors in the film. Well, I shouldn't say actors, participants.
Yeah.
He has a very high opinion of his moments in the film, which cracks me up.
That's interesting. His website, Classic Arcade Gaming, that's been around since before the movie came out.
It really has. It is one of the oldest gaming websites relating to classic arcade gaming. He's not very much active in it anymore. The only thing he really seems to do is every year he updates that blurb at the bottom of his electronic signatures that says how many events he's attended since how many years. He just keeps updating that. But beyond that, if you look at the statistics and it says time spent on the website, it's largely for almost the last 5 to 10 years been roughly the same. He doesn't really look at it anymore. All he does is once a year he comes out with a post begging for people to give him money because it's so expensive to host his site. It's like the guy can't spend $200 to host a website. Give me a break.
Yeah. Funny thing, I randomly have in my notes that it's something somebody sent to me. Hey, ask Robert about this one day. But apparently Mark Alpinger took issue with you claiming that Steve Weeby's little kid was coached to deliver the line about Guinness ruining everyone's lives or something.
Oh, of course. If you look at that watch where that kid's eyes are going as she's saying that, both before and after. That kid is looking at someone, or she's looking at someone holding up a card for her to read or something. That is not only what my opinion is based on where her eyes were, but a kid at that age that has nothing to do with the hobby, who the hell comes up with an expression like that on the fly? Who was he kidding? I mean, Who was anyone kidding? That kid was coached to say that.
I don't know. Kids say silly things sometimes, so I don't know, but that is
Not
interesting.
Not that. That's
Yeah.
a little beyond that girl's life experience at that point to say something like that.
Speaking of the movie, there's been references by yourself and others to like the idea that Seth and Ed could have ended up in court for their portrayals. Let's see.
I honestly think that the film, my opinion, that film should have never been allowed to be released in its present state because, as I was told, and I will say names here, as I was told by Gary Vincent, who was the then president of ACAM, and who was one of FunSpot's operating managers, he said he came in one particular morning and there were signs at all of the major entranceways into the upper arcade, which were not put there with permission of FunSpot management. And it basically said that filming is taking place, and if you're being filmed, you will be included. They had no right to do that.
Yeah.
And I told Walter, who of course this went in one ear and out the other for obvious reasons, he was in on this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I told him that because of this, any footage obtained within that period of time cannot be used as part of the film. And since you can't tell, since there's no clocks on the wall or windows outside within the confines of the primary arcade, you can't tell what time of the day it is or what was filmed when. That whole thing, there should have been an injunction issued to get that film stopped from being released until it could be definitively determined what was filmed with permission and what was filmed without. So I gave all my opinions to Walter, and what does, of course, he do with it? Nothing.
Yeah. Because I also had in my notes that you took notes on the film, of course, but that you gave them to TG thinking that they might be passed on to legal counsel.
I did.
Yeah.
There was a number of I shouldn't say false portrayals, but misrepresentations within the film.
Yeah.
And as far as whether it warrants the film being stopped is another matter, but it created a false narrative. For example, there's a whole section there regarding the Pompano event, and there's a section where Steve Sanders is on the phone with Billy talking about, he just did this and he just did that. He wasn't talking about Steve Weeb. He was talking about somebody playing Jobst. So for starters, that was false. Second, if you watch a certain sequence as far as Steve Weeb's last attempt at a Donkey Kong score at the Pompano event, if you watch the entire tape and you chronicle all the scenes where they show the high score on the top of the machine as well as the high score table, this was a mishmash of several different performances concatenated into one. On top of the fact, he died 5 times during the performance, which of course you and I know or 6 times, which you know is physically impossible.
That's correct. Yep.
So it created a misrepresentation to starters, and that the way that I was in particular treated in the film, as far as towards the end when they said Robert resigned, when I was in the movie theater with Pat LaFay, in a Manhattan theater in Times Square, when that blurb came out on the screen, you couldn't hear audibly from the rest of the audience. They had no idea I was sitting in the crowd. They reacted to that with guffaws. That's the best way to put it. Like, what a surprise.
Yeah.
And so it created the misrepresentation that, I was, in some cases, I either left because of embarrassment or I was forced to resign, which wasn't the case.
That's right. Oh, wait. All right, so there are 3 reasons. I actually reviewed my old interviews with you last night, but I want to see if I remember the 3 reasons you left. There was the emulation split on Atari.
Yep, I didn't like that because I told Walter back in 2004 I didn't think we should do this because it was going to be a net gain to the Twin Galaxies database of 0. There was no reason we should approach this, all because somebody made a big stink about the game Pitfall, and I think the other game they made a big stink about was Decathlon. But Walter said to do it, and I did it, and with some help from Todd Rogers, I did it. Not a great help,
yeah.
some help. And there were people, specifically that jackass Scott Stilfen, a.k.a. Stonic,
Yeah.
who lasted my findings in that, saying, well, how can you say this, and how can you say that's emulated? The bottom line is, nobody gave a shit other than him. But Walter never once stepped in to moderate and say, hey, this guy's looking at over 2,800 scores over here, largely working solo with some help from Todd. Get the guy a break. Walter didn't do anything.
Didn't stick up for it, yeah. That's
that
rough.
was the first reason. The second reason, of course, was the Roy Shildt issue.
Roy Shildt and the fact that they accepted Weeby's score despite the continuity breaks.
And that was the third reason, yeah.
Speaking of that emulation split, so was it? So the question I have on my list is why was it unpopular? But now I'm thinking was it really that unpopular, or was it just Scott Stilfen really didn't like it?
He was the number one detractor of the efforts made towards splitting the Atari 2600 platform. And what irked the bejesus out of me was because at the time, he only had 18 records in the TG database, all of which were on this very small niche subset of the Atari 2600 platform. There was like a tape drive or something for the 2600. I forget what it was actually called, where you would have this add-on for the 2600 with extra memory, and it allowed you to play certain specific games. And for this guy to have only 18 scores, to be the biggest public advocate of an effort to split 2800, honest to God, I was sick and tired of this guy.
Yeah.
And what did he do? If you look at the Atari Compendium website,
Oh, right.
he decided he is going to forever, for anyone to see, have my name listed there. And he just blasted the bejesus out of me, saying I'm a disgraced former Twin Galaxies gamer and referee, blah, 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 blah.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah. Honest to God, if I ever saw this guy face to face, I'd be arrested because I probably put his head right into the concrete. But that's how little I think of him.
This is a public interview, I'll remind you.
Oh, I don't care. If I ever see that guy, I'm going right in the street.
Oh.
I wouldn't even say that about Roy Shildt, Billy Mitchell, or Rudy Ferretti. But Scott Stilfen irks the shit out of me.
Well, Rudy Ferretti, we don't have to worry about him anymore. Did I ask you about last time?
But he's a done deal at this point.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame. What happened in the final, outcome is a damn shame.
It really is.
He took someone with him. It was a nice lady. I met her once. She struck me as a very nice lady. And it's just a damn shame that because of her association with him, and I thought before that he had gotten his act together, but clearly that wasn't the case. It's just a damn shame the way it worked out.
Yeah, complete fucking tragedy.
Yeah.
It is weird, to change the subject a bit. It is weird how you have such an intense dislike of Roy Shildt and of Billy Mitchell, and then they don't like each other either. So it's like all three of you.
Well, Billy I don't like largely for two reasons now. A, his lie. B, his grandstanding. I never liked the fact, before we knew his games themselves were lies, I never liked the fact that he had a world record in progress and he arrogantly stopped recording it just Mitchell. That I couldn't stand as a former referee and as a competitive gamer. I couldn't stand that more than anything.
Yeah.
Even more so than his line. Roy annoyed me not only for his bullshit about his missile command performances, but all of his actions. And I could literally write a book on Roy Shildt, a 50 to 100 page book on all of his antics. He was the most despicable person that I've ever had to deal with in all my years at Twin Galaxies, even more so than Stofan.
Didn't Roy send you obscene material to your work?
Yes. No, that was Rudy.
Oh, that was Rudy. Oh my God! All right.
Rudy, to my job, sent a rubber dildo to my job in a box addressed to Robert from accounting. Roy kept pestering our receptionist and nearly got me fired.
Oh God.
I had to have Jace Hall call him up to tell him to knock it off.
Oh,
that's how bad it got.
Oh, this wasn't even in the old days. This was like during the Jace Hall era.
Yeah, because at that point it was post 2012 when Jace Hall took over. Roy was pestering me in my job.
Oh my God, that guy is nuts. See, people see, if I can, I know it's your interview, but I just want to say, like, people see King of Kong and they see Billy's the bad guy, which he is, and they see Roy Shildt going up against him, and they're like, yeah, Roy Shildt was wronged. He deserves more respect. I'm like, he would be annoying as fuck if he was elevated the way Billy was.
Roy Shildt, not unlike a certain Florida-based president, he always says certain things that other people are doing, but he, in fact, is the one doing it. Like Roy will say, for instance, oh, Billy didn't have the FBI came after me. Billy called the FBI against himself. He'll say stupid things like that.
Yeah.
He'll always talk about some antic that he pulled about, calling people up at all hours and demanding this and demanding that. He'll do it, but then he'll say somebody else did it. So he's always, Mr. Teflon. He's innocent. It was never him. When in fact the exact opposite is true. He is one of the worst people that you can ever hope to meet in life or deal with in life, because once he gets his claws in you, your phone number, your mailing address, your email, that's all she wrote.
I believe it. There's one message, and I'll just ask, I might have asked you about this before, but I'll ask you again. It's one of the only messages from Billy on the old TG forums ever, and it was under your account, and it's basically telling Roy, stop calling my business, leave me the fuck alone. It was 2004, I think.
Yeah, when he was still talking, of course.
Yeah.
He was still a TG referee at the time. Billy directed me to post that because he said he doesn't post on the TG forum at all, which was true. He never did. So Billy directed me to post that on his behalf, which I did, publicly, addressed to Roy, specifically to Roy, and I had no problem posting that at the time.
Yeah, was there any other story behind that, or Billy just got you on the phone? And
I don't remember the details of it because Roy was just quite honestly out of control at that point. He just wouldn't stop. I got to the point where, as chief referee, one of the things I did, and I have no problem admitting this, the forum software that TG had where you were allowed to post on the forum, I monitored that religiously, and I also built in a couple of caveats. I was so personally sick and tired of Roy Shildt, I put in permutations where any time Roy Shilt's name is mentioned, whether it's spelled with an SCHILDT or without the D, or if it's Mr. Awesome, without quote marks, I replaced it with asterisks. Every single time his name was mentioned, it would replace it with asterisks in the forum software. And there was nothing you could do, even if you put R space, O space, Y space, and spell the rest, I even had that built in. He couldn't so much as say hello without me deleting the posts. I was so annoyed with them.
That's funny.
And I have no problem admitting that. A lot of people say, well, that's free speech. I don't give a shit. I told Jace Hall when he took over TG, at the time, there were 4 people you should on the forum again. Roy Shildt, Rudy Ferretti, Scott Stilfen, and Scott Rubin from All Games Radio.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I keep meaning to go through and upload it, but I've found the whole segments with Scott Rubin and you and Walter Day and Roy Shildt on All Games Radio.
Oh, that Let Me Finish thing is hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I've never seen it or heard it.
And
it's hilarious.
So I found it when I was started researching this stuff. I was kind of going from, I'd seen King of Concourse back in the day, but after the Billy dispute, I said, I want to know everything about this. I was kind of from the ground running, and I found those. And then a year or so later, they disappeared off the internet. So I'm not even sure they're available anymore.
The last time I checked, and it's been a long time, if you try to log into All Games Radio, you get some error message that tells you that the site's like a malicious website or something.
Ah.
So whatever happened, however, they deleted their posts or whatever, I have no idea at this point. I have no intention of pursuing it. But for those that do have the Let Me Finish tirade, it's hilarious to listen to it. It's one of those things that I wish they had, like a push me, pull string Roy Shildt doll, where you pull the string and it goes, let me finish. Let me finish. It's hilarious. And you hear me in the background weekly saying, Roy, I can't hear you. It was hilarious. I was trying not to laugh in the background because of how out of control obnoxious he was.
That's funny. And I remember, gosh, excuse me, sorry. The beginning of the interview, he's quiet, and it surprised me, and I realized later it's because he's giving you and Walter Day all the time to talk, and then when it's his turn, it's like, well, now it's my turn.
He was gearing up for his big announcement where he's going to issue a challenge to Tony Temple or whatever the hell that challenge the issue was. That's what he was gearing up for.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized is that once he started to speak, he didn't want to have his momentum cut off, which is then when he went into his Let Me Finish tirade.
Right.
But he was gearing up the whole time just to proudly say, if you don't meet me here and, you don't accept my challenge and I'm the champion and you're not, whatever the hell his big challenge was that he was issuing.
Mm-hmm.
But that was clearly his intent all along. And the background of that particular interview, how I think I mentioned last time, minutes before the interview started, not even an hour, and Tony Temple chronicled this in his Missile Commander book. Walter called up two people within an hour before that radio segment. He called up Tony Temple and he called up Todd Rogers.
Oh.
And one of them, he asked, what were the odds that Roy got $1 million without my noticing it, without my noticing the rollover? One of the questions was, what are the odds that he was getting that high without me noticing that the cities were turning over? That was the first question he asked. And the other one was, what are the odds that he did not recognize that, the score turned over? The fact that he asked those questions 1 hour before the interview, and I found this out after the interview, was very telling. Because during the interview, up to that point, Walter was lockstep with me in terms of his opinion of Roy Shildt and everything, and all of a sudden, when came the interview, he didn't want to say anything that would put him in a negative light with the gaming community. He was worrying about bad karma and all that crap. So basically, he sold me out on the air.
Yeah.
And that's the Walter Day that most people don't know. Self-preservationist.
Yep. I believe it. Do you have any other recollections from that whole interview? Were you only on there on that show the once?
It was Walter Day, myself, and Roy Shildt. I don't think anyone else was on that interview other than Scott Rubin and his crew.
Yeah. Were you only on Scott's show that one time?
Yes.
All right.
One time. There is one thing that happened on the All Game Network post-interview. They made a cartoon panel of the Let Me Finish tirade, and I wish I saved a picture one shot. It showed Roy Shildt screaming, let me finish, and then it showed, for a joke, it showed pictures of people from faraway places saying, Roy, like they hear let me finish, even though we're like 2,000 miles away. And one of the images was Governor Schwarzenegger saying, Roy, with question marks. I thought that was actually pretty funny.
That's funny.
It was just out of control loud.
I'm not sure I've seen that cartoon. Dwayne included something in his trailer for his Missile Command documentary he did a few years ago, and it had a little animated thing with Roy going, let me finish. Maybe that was from that.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
All right.
It was like a sequential, like a comic book type page.
All right. Yeah, Dwayne's thing he used was animated, so maybe it wasn't that.
But it did appear on the Old Games radio website. I just wish I saved a copy of it.
Oh, I might have seen that.
Yeah.
I'll look later. I'll look later on and see, and if I find it, I'll send it to you. I feel like maybe I have seen that.
It was well done. I will say that. It was well done. Whoever came up with it, it was pretty funny.
I've never seen Roy Schildt's comic book where he's on the cover with that model.
A couple of people say they have, and quite honestly, I don't believe them.
Yeah.
Why? Because who were the people that said they'd seen it? Scott Rubin. Small surprise.
Yeah.
And very few other people have said they've actually seen it. I remember Ron Corcoran or Billy, I forget which, telling me many years ago that if you actually sent him money, he had no choice but to return it because he couldn't deliver what he promised in the mail. So it would be mail fraud for him to accept the money.
Oh, gosh. All right. Oh, interesting.
Because, of course, he was advertising, send me money, and I will send you this. He couldn't send you it because it didn't exist. So all the people that said they saw it was hogwash.
Yeah.
You have to wonder, with at least a few people saying they've seen it, where is it?
Yeah, I feel like there'd be copies somewhere.
Not one copy of it anywhere, not even a picture of one page of it, nothing. Not one little blurb of it. It's all bullshit. Just like a lot of stuff that Roy said. One thing I will tell you, and I don't think I ever mentioned this in an interview, maybe I did, I don't remember.
Maybe.
Roy Shildt said on his website once, his Shock and Awesome website, or his Roy Awesome website, he said that, just like he did in his that TV interview that's on YouTube, he said that something about his sperm count, and he contacted Madonna about his sperm count.
Oh, God, yeah.
What I did years ago, I sent a note to Liz Rosenberg. Do you know who Liz Rosenberg is?
I do not.
She was Madonna's publicist.
Oh, all right.
And I said, look at what this jackass, I didn't use that word, is saying about your client.
Oh, right.
On a website, no less. And shortly thereafter, that blurb on his Mr. Awesome website came down.
Oh, interesting.
And I never found out why, but I have to imagine, since it came down within 30 to 60 days after I sent out that message to her, that chances are, Madonna being Madonna and being worth like 10,000 times more than what Roy is, he probably had her publicist contact Roy with some form of action saying, take this down or else face the consequences.
Oh, yeah, all right. Interesting.
Yep.
That's funny. Let's see. Got a bunch of questions. Just trying to stay. Let's see. How about this one? So last time we talked, I reviewed my old interview with you, and it came up that Brian Koo was cited as saying that you stole or you left Fun Spot with Billy's tape at 2005, and I looked and I couldn't find any like declaration from Brian Koo or specific citing. It just says in the evidence packet, it says, quote, according to Brian Koo, Robert left the Fun Spot event with Mitchell's tape, so there was no tape for Mitchell to send Mruczek.
Which, of course, is a lie, because Walter Day himself said that the tape was going to be sent to me by Billy Mitchell, which it eventually was. And, of course, what really happened at the event, is that on that very same Sunday, the very last day of the event, when I showed up in the morning, that is when Walter told me, right before I was driven back to Brooklyn where I live, that's when Walter told me that the $10,000 that Billy promised was if someone did this, and that's why he showed his performance, because I thought it was disgusting that he was showing it while Steve Wiebe was playing. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that's gross.
To that point was what Walter did with logging and scoring. As far as the tape, once that tape was shown, that tape, it was not mine to take back. I never had it ever. That tape was in the possession of Brian Koo up to that point. I don't know what the hell happened with it afterwards. So Brian basically said what he did. Why he would say that, God only knows. I could only speculate that a certain jackass named Gary Bobbitt Ferguson told him to say it, because Brian on his own would not say something like that.
There's that, yeah. Have you talked to Brian Koo since that little bit came out?
I really haven't had the need to talk to Brian at all in recent years. I probably have seen him just in passing during one of my November trips to Fun Spot up until 2018.
Right.
Because I was told that what he was doing at some point was just showing up, going through all the machines, seeing if there's any coins inside, and then leaving.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why someone that's retired needs to do that, but that's a whole other discussion. But I really don't stay in touch with Brian, and I had no reason to talk to him after that. The only sad thing is what happened to Brian during some unfortunate altercation at ACAM, when another gamer basically just blew a whole bunch of snot rockets in his face for very bad reasons.
Oh, geez. Can I ask what that was about? I've never heard this.
Brian Koo and Mark Ehlers, Mark Ehlers, I think it was.
Yeah.
Or it was Scooty Ehlers. He had a brother over there. I forgot what his. Mark Ehlers.
I've heard of Scooty.
Yeah, that's Mark Ehlers.
All right.
It wasn't the brightest bulb, to put it mildly, but they were both gunning for a GameStop position to work in a local GameStop in a place called Tilden. And as I understand it, Brian threw the Billy Mitchell card under the table, saying, "I know Billy Mitchell."
Oh.
And that probably gave him the job. Don't ask me why it did, but it did. And at some point at ACAM, Scooty confronted Brian, and Gary Vincent was witness to this. And Gary said he did something, and all of a sudden, Brian's face was covered with white gunk.
Oh, yuck.
I mean, Gary said he never saw anything like it. Before he realized what happened, it was over. And Scooty was escorted out of the building and basically told never ever return. And then Brian was like totally shaken up by it. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, for real. Oh, that's so gross.
That was disgusting. I really felt bad for that happening to Brian. It was just beyond disgusting, and it was totally uncalled for. But that's the incident.
Oh, all right. Oh, God, yeah, I've never heard anything about this. Two thoughts on that.
It wouldn't be well publicized, of course. Of
course, yeah. Two thoughts on that. The only thing I know Scooty from is that on Mark Applegar's site, CAGDC, Roy Shildt logged in and he said, "I'll see you at Fun Spot, Scooty," or something like that. So I'm like,
I do remember that post. Roy and this kid never ever met. I guarantee that.
All right.
Roy only showed up at Fun Spot once and once only, and by the grace of God, it was the first event that I did not show up at from when the events started in 1999. I was there from 99 through 2002. I couldn't show up in the 2003 event because of work, and that's when Roy Shildt showed up.
Well, you lucked out.
I count my blessings on that one.
Yeah.
Bud Rogers told me that, Roy was like just a pig. Worse was when he showed up at a certain event that Ron Corcoran was at, and Ron said that Roy was walking around in one of his spandex outfits, and it was like, he should have. That's where the expression "Captain Fig Leaf" came from for Roy.
Oh gosh.
Put a fig leaf in front of him, otherwise you see something flopping about.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. But that's the nature of Roy Shildt. He's just a slob.
He's just, yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is, it's interesting that Brian Koo ended up working at this fun spot. I guess he was managing a fun spot, and there was a time, us kind of researching all this, we were convinced, because Billy talks about how his mortgage broker's score was set up by a GameSpot manager, and there's a moment where the light bulb clicked or whatever, and we're like, oh crap, Brian Koo was a GameSpot manager up in New Hampshire. Is he referring to Brian Koo obliquely and just doesn't want to say his name, so we don't know who it is? We were convinced it was him, but no, it really was some other guy out there who was a...
No, I don't think it was Brian he was referring to, but Billy lied about me about that score. He told me that this was the score which was the best score of all time. He claimed that he had a camera on his score at ground level, and another one was on the first balcony facing downward. That's what he told me. As it turns out, that's full of shit.
Complete bullshit, yeah.
Complete bullshit. And that's on top of the fact that, and I still can't believe that the judge did not take this into consideration, his complete lie about the score that he says, he was defamed at by people saying he didn't do it, because Billy said that, he got his world record on Donkey Kong of 1 million whatever, when in fact we all know that it is physically impossible for him inside of 15 minutes to get 1 million points.
Yep.
So what he really did was he got his 50,000 points in 15 minutes, and then he told people, look what I did.
Yeah. Oh, I rolled it over, I promise you, yeah.
Yeah, I promise you. I'm Billy Mitchell. I promise you, so it must be true. I mean, the guy is just a goddamn liar.
Yeah, he is.
He says it so often now that he says it with a straight face. He actually believes it.
He's still insisting to people, I never cheated.
It's his definition of what cheating is.
Maybe
He doesn't think what he did is cheating. See, using main save state is, in his eyes, likely not cheating. Why? Well, you're still playing the game. The fact that I'm stringing it together.
Oh God, he's so gross. Yeah.
It's like, and I don't mean to use this analogy implying that this is Billy, but it's like if you've ever seen those Law and Order SVU episodes when they have, a child pedophile being grilled by the detectives, and they always say, that they would never do anything to hurt the child. Well, that's because in their eyes, they're not hurting him.
Oh, right.
He would never cheat, but in his eyes, it's not cheating.
In his eyes, he deserves it. Well, I'm the real champion, so I should be the one to get all the praise.
Yeah. Yep. Billy has an opinion of, what he does, and in his eyes, there's nothing he does that's wrong. Nothing.
That's right.
It's his very nature.
Speaking of a fun spot, you told me sometime a while back that you were wanting to make a big return to fun spot at some point. Have you gotten around to doing that?
I can't because, and I don't mean to sound, like I'm looking for pathos or anything, but largely the reason I don't go to Fun Spot is because I have an elder care issue.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm the primary caregiver, and I am in a position where I physically cannot leave this person unattended for hours at a clip, never mind days.
Yeah.
So at present, things being the way they are, a trip to Fun Spot is not on my radar.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It is what it is. It's, the hand that life has dealt to me, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Do you remember, so, let's go back to, before the, before the King of Kong tape, Billy had another direct feed tape that was 1.014 million, and we actually know a fair bit about it because you did a complete score analysis on it.
Yeah,
that was going to be Billy's, first million.
That was the performance that he did in response to Steve Weeby's 1.006 million from July 2nd of 2004. Steve Weeby, if you remember, he did a 985 on tape on around May 29th of 2004. Then on June 30th, he did a 999.5K on tape. Then he did the 1.006 million. At that point, Billy turned in 1.014 million.
Yeah, I don't remember all the specific Weeby scores, but I remember the key one. Weeby did 1.006.
Yeah, that's the progression of Steve Weeby's scores after the 947 score.
Do you remember why? I mean, I have a good idea why it was withdrawn, why Billy withdrew it, but do you remember if there was a different reason given at the time?
No, what happened was that both scores were reviewed. I did an extensive write-up, nearly 40-page write-up on both scores with full detailed, data analysis of what they made per board type, and more. I did the write-up, which was never published, and I had, up to that point, I had plans to announce that the world's first 2 million-point Donkey Kong scores were all the information I need to contact the Letterman people. David Letterman was still on the air at that time. But then the incident happened at Weeby's house, which showed the Roy Shildt involvement with the board sets being sent. And it was Billy at that point that said that the TG already had egg on its face from the 947, couldn't afford to have it again. So until things are, whatever, straightened out, we can't release these scores. So the score was put on hold, and at that point, Billy said he withdraws his 1.014 million. And the reason Billy jumped with the 1.014 million was because of that 2000 MTV interview where he said he was going to do this big stunt that no one else had ever done before.
Right, on MTV True Life, yeah.
And if you remember, I told you that in the first Mall of America event, I told him in the parking lot of Mall of America what I thought he was going to do, and Dwayne Richards was right there. And I said, if I was you, here's what I would do. I would get 1 million points on Miss Pac-Man, 1 million points on Donkey Kong, the New World's record, 1 million points, Donkey Kong Jr. I'd take back the Centipede record, and I'd probably take back the Burger Time record, because these are the 5 records that at one point you held. So you'd probably try to take back all of them, maybe on the same day. And he said, who told you that? And I said, no one. That's just what I would do if I was you, because we're pretty much the same in terms of competitive spirit, however I phrased it. And he said at the time I was the closest person to figuring out what he wanted to do. Fast forward to Steve Weeby's 1.006 million Donkey Kong. Well, that takes away the thunder from Mr. Mitchell's goal, which he's never done, and at this point he never can do, because there's no more thunder to be recognized.
Yeah.
Put scores up so high, you simply can't beat him at this point. Really, once Steve Weeby's 1 million points not going to be announced, he rescinded his 1 million point score because, well, now he can go back to working on that special project, which never came to be.
Right. So it was just voluntary on his part.
Yep. But an opportunity came up at a Lincoln Center event in August of that year, which Graham Legat, I think was the guy's name, that was the director of the place that this event took place. And that's the one place where Billy put the TV on its side before the public discussion took place, where Billy said before about 1,500 people that they said it couldn't be done, and here's 1 million points of Donkey Kong, and here's the tape. So this is a tape that, again, he withdrew, but now all of a sudden he's announcing it as the first tape ever done.
Wait, so did he withdrew it before that event and then announced it anyway?
Yes, because we had already held up announcing those scores because they occurred in early July. This event took place in August.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah. So that's Billy. After having, Steve's score, withheld from announcement, and after having his own score withdrawn, now all of a sudden he runs a little ass to this event, and he announces it before all these people, here's my 1,000,000-point score.
I didn't know that happened in that order. I just assumed that he did that while it was still on the table.
No. Technically, Billy wanted to steal Steve Levy's thunder, which is why, after all these years, I'm glad that TG finally, at some point several years ago, recognized, or I should say re-recognized Steve Levy as being the first 1,000,000-point scorer. Because concurrent with Steve Levy's 1.06 million performance, I was prepared to recognize that as the first 1,000,000-point score. Billy was arguing to Walter Day and I that, no, I did this score beforehand. I just never turned it in.
Yeah.
And we told Billy, we didn't turn it in. You know the rules.
Yep.
But, of course, Billy Mitchell thinks that he's above the rules.
Yeah.
Not unlike a certain jackass in Florida that runs the country right now.
Yep.
That's why I told you, the parallels between those two are astonishing. But
that's crazy.
What he tried to do. He tried to unduly influence Walter and I into not acknowledging Steve Levy's score. Now, I can tell you in hindsight, and again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, had Brian Crew and Perry Rogers not went into Steve Levy's garage, those scores would have been recognized by TG, and my article, which I think I shared with you, recognized them as the world's first 2,000,000-point Donkey Kong scores.
That's right, because they would have never found the Roy Shildt thing, and that would have been...
Yep. Had that happened, we would have announced those two scores. But as it would have turned out years later, the 1,014 score would have been found to have been bogus.
Yeah. And you said something about there was an arrangement for someone to be on Letterman? I don't think I knew this.
It's not an arrangement. I had plans to contact the David Letterman people.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. I have not one, but two people that just got a 1,000,000-point score on Donkey Kong. It's a human interest thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to have them come over. And I was all set to pull the trigger on making the calls and arranging for it. And then, unfortunately, is the thing with Steve Levy's house and garage.
So it's something that might have happened. They hadn't committed to it. It's possible, though. That's the kind of thing that shows up on that show.
And I will tell you, in retrospect, had Crew and Perry Rogers not found this, and had I went through with making the announcement and making that call, imagine the media storm that would have followed. Having those two people on the Letterman show, that would have been stellar for Twin Galaxies.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That would have been a memorable, epic moment in the history of TG. It would have brought gaming to the mainstream like never before. So it's a damn shame that things went down the way they did.
Gosh. So much of it was spoiled just because, they wanted to disqualify Weeby, and then meanwhile, Billy's just putting up bogus stuff, and it's all about him.
Yeah, that's the shame of it all. And the other shame of it all is the so-called expertise or expert opinions that I got from the people that were, at the time, the known experts on Donkey Kong aside from Steve. Because when Billy turns to score, you have to go to the experts other than Billy and vice versa. So it was Billy, Chris Ira, and Brian Crew who were telling me that bullshit about the gummy substance changing the way the clock behaves and the way the game behaves, so it gives Steve Reeve an advantage. I didn't come up with the term gummy substance on my own. That was them. I was parroting what I was told. I was never a technical expert for these titles. I was chief referee, and I was under Walter the final say in things. But when it came to that particular realization that there was a gummy substance on the boards that would impact gameplay, well, the problem there is Roy Shildt had said years earlier that he was going to be gunning for TG and doing something to get TG's, egg on its face.
Yep.
Well, here we are, egg on its face. If this thing ever went through and it turns out the boards were fake.
Yeah, yep. Funny, you mentioned gummy substance. One of the songs, if I remember correctly, one of the songs in King of Kong, like one of the little background music bits, is called Gummy Substance. And then I was watching a while back, I was watching something totally different. I don't remember what it was right now. But then there's a song that comes on, a background song, I'm like, I've heard that before. And I looked up in the credits, and sure as heck, it was the Gummy Substance song.
How about that? Funny thing is about King of Kong that the gummy substance is ironically, that's a term that, of course, originated with, like I told you, Billy Mitchell, Chris Ira, and Brian Crew. But I always said years ago that Brian Crew should have trademarked, there's a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up.
Oh, right, yep.
He would have made a killing for a short period of time. He could have even made appearances at people's events, showing up and saying there's a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up.
Oh yeah, people absolutely would have. I mean, now the movie's so old, there's actually, like, it's hard to find people who remembered or have seen it, but at the time, absolutely people would have paid him to show up.
It was pretty hot, and I even saw a YouTube video of somebody, not pretending to be Brian, but they were filming themselves, going up to random people on like boardwalks and restaurants or wherever, telling them that there's a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up, just to get the reaction of these people for their video. So there was an interest at the time, and I even told Brian he should trademark that particular catchphrase, because that's what I thought it was, a catchphrase.
Mm-hmm.
There was even a T-shirt, I remember. I saw it. It was a T-shirt with Brian Crew's face on it, talking about a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up.
I think I've seen the shirt, yeah. Maybe not in person, but like on something. Someone on a video was wearing it or something.
There was even a shirt with my image on it. It wasn't a photo image. It was kind of like a grainy black and white rough image of my face. And I think it said something about if you do not know the Tron life cycle pattern, you will die.
Right.
That was a short-lived shirt. But the Brian Crew shirt, I saw that one on a website for a while before they took it down, before interest waned.
Yeah. That was, you probably don't even get recognized. Well, you don't look the same as you do 20 years out from the movie anyway, so.
I kind of look the same, kind of. Of course, my hair is grayer.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, it would be tough to recognize me now versus then. It's 19 years, going on 20.
Yep. I mean, the events in the movie are 20 or 21 years, so. But yeah, next year will be the 20th anniversary of the release. Yeah.
Yep, and this coming December is the 20th year since I resigned from DG.
Oh gosh! Wow.
Time flies.
Yep. We're all getting older.
Yep. Well, of course, it was 25 years since I joined TG. That's already passed. 25 years.
Speaking of getting older, yesterday we did like a quick pre-interview chat, and you were talking about a Space Invaders event, and you were like, "Do you remember that Space Invaders event from '78?" I was just like, "I was born in '78, sir. I don't."
That was one of the only video game events that I went to back in the day.
All right.
It was run by, I don't remember, it was Citibank, Citicorp. Somebody ran a global Space Invaders event across the United States. And the event took place in Manhattan, locally for me. And I got there, and there was hundreds, if not thousands of kids. And my father drove me there. And the goal was, you went there and you were going to play Space Invaders. Of course, your expectation is, well, what Space Invaders are you accustomed to playing? And as a gamer, I always played Game 1B, which was the original. But I also played, with different degrees of success, I played the other games, the Zigzags, the Invisibles, the Fast Lasers. So I was pretty much ready for anything.
Yeah.
What I did not know until you actually got there was that they were playing on Game 1A, which was the big spaceship.
Right, yeah.
And that is a big wake-up call compared to playing on Game 1B. And I never understood how the gamer that won the event had over 115,000 as the final score. And there was a couple of other gamers that did almost as well. I did not even come in the top 10. I only got about 15,000 points myself, because I never played the big spaceship. I hated it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, all of a sudden, you start the game and a bomb just comes out and blows you up. I did not know, how can you possibly avoid that? I never found out how gamers could last so long with the big ship and not die. I just never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
But clearly, a lot of people were able to do it. There was a tactic that I later found out when we were playing a Atari 2600 Decathlon for TG, and we had the version where it was the fast zigzagging bullets. I was trying to get desperately a good score in the event, like we all were, and I was having problems getting more than 5,000-6,000 points. Some people were getting 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, and I'm thinking to myself, how the hell are they doing that? They can't be that much better than me.
Yeah.
But I was told that there was some tiny little movement you got to make right away to kind of make the Space Invaders pause and dropping their missiles. And to this day, I was never able to do it. I tried for hours after that, trying to get it done even reliably. But I was never able to do it. So I'll never understand how people were able to avoid getting hit by missiles in some of those variations, including Game 1A. I was never able to understand it. I'd love for someone to explain it to me after all these years, just for my own edification, but I don't know who does know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the arcade version. I had a home version growing up, but that didn't have the ships were the same size no matter what. There was no large ship.
Yeah, I was hoping to play the small, Game 1B, but in retrospect, I got a pretty high score in Game 1B decades ago. It was around 784,000, which is pretty damn good, and I think that's actually probably better than TG's best score to date. Of course, I wasn't recording it. I was playing my game home, and I was playing it for quite a few hours on a night where we had a parent-teachers event that night, and I was too busy playing the game to want to break, and my father was trying to get me to go, and all of a sudden I died when we went to the parent-teachers conference. But otherwise, I was more concerned with playing Space Invaders than having them talk to my teachers.
Yeah.
That was my first term in high school during that event. But Space Invaders, I only really liked playing on the B difficulty with the small ship. The A difficulty to me was just it was just stupid. There was no reason to play it. It didn't really prove anything. If you didn't get bombed, no recourse but to get hit because of where you start in proximity to the very first alien who's dropping bombs. You just didn't have enough time to move your ship out of the way.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was fair.
It's a nice memory going to that event, though. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and my father, much to his good graces, he let me, after my first death at the experience, to get back to the line, to go all the way to the front again to try the second time.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much probably half of his day, that day with me at the event. So, I had a father that cared about me a lot, so he gladly did that, which was nice of him.
That's awesome. That's sweet.
I got a chance to try twice.
And that probably would have been, because Space Invaders predates Pac-Man by a couple years. So that probably would have been, right? Before Pac-Man?
Well, yeah. Space Invaders, the arcade game, came out in 78. Pac-Man came out in either 80 or 81. I can't remember. I think it was 80. But
80,
the 2600 versions also, Space Invaders on the 2600 came out before Pac-Man did.
So yeah, that would have been the game at the time.
Yeah. And it was a good. I liked 2600 Pac-Man. I liked it more than I liked arcade Space Invaders. 2600 Space Invaders. I liked it more.
All right.
Than the arcade version because of all the variations you had.
All right.
The fast lasers, zigzag, invisible, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, all right. I was about to say, wait, you liked 2600 Pac-Man more? It's like, whoa.
No, I hated 2600 Pac-Man.
Everyone did, yeah.
I hated it. I just couldn't stand that game.
They had to bury that game out in the desert.
More like under my foot.
So I thought we just had some breaking news for a moment. I was like, whoa.
I like so many other people, I was able to play that game out as long as I wanted to. But what was the point? What did you prove by playing that game out over and over and over again? It didn't prove anything.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
2600, there was some controversy a while back. I might have asked you about this before, but there was some controversy about 999,999 score on Kaboom that you may have submitted to Snipercade, but people thought it was like multiplied by 10 or something.
I don't think it was that. We had an event on the 2600 console. It was part of a decathlon event, and this is after my 999K submission. The event was on the A difficulty, which is small buckets. And on the small bucket event, I didn't get anywhere near, of course, 999.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, anyone that got 999 should, of course, be able to get more in small buckets. Of course, I'm playing a limited duration event with rickety paddles. I never really used WD-40s. I just had new paddles on hand just in case. But I had paddles that weren't reliable. I didn't have any extras, so I put up as best as I could with shitty paddles, and that was that. But somebody said, well, how the hell did you get 999? I don't have to make copies of every one of my performances. I know some gamers, they made copies of their tapes before they turned it in. I didn't have the resources to copy one from another at the time. So whatever that performance went in was, it went in. And if people don't like it, that's too freaking bad.
Yeah.
I had max scores on Kaboom. I had max scores on, if I remember, Keystone Capers was one. Chopper Command was another one. And I can't remember the others. There wasn't that many that I maxed out scores on for the 2600 titles as far as games that have a finite score maximum. There was another score that years later got blasted. Somebody made a big stink about my Commando score being exactly 1 million points. And their logic to their argument was preposterous. They said, how would you get 1 million points only without knowing what would happen if you rolled the game over? So here's the thing. The scoring on Commando 2600, I forget if the minimum scoring increment was 25 points or 50 points or 100. I can't remember after all these years.
Yeah.
But knowing what the minimum score increments was and what the value of the objects was, let's just say hypothetically I was at 999,950 and I saw a 50-point object, I hit it, and whatever happened at that point, either the scores would go to all zero, it would show 1 million points, it would reset the game. It doesn't matter. I'm being recorded. And I have no intention of pulling it out further than that. So that was the extent of my performance. And I submitted to corporate, and that was that. Years later, someone's making a big stink. How did you get an even 1 million points on Commando? Well, the same way, how many times I got 999, 995, or 975 on Defender? It's because it was intentional.
All right. I didn't know anything about the Commando score.
Well, it's like Donald Hayes used to, and you know Donald Hayes, he told me once that in like a 10 or 25 mile radius around where he lived, he would pretty much go to every single venue that had a centipede in it.
Right.
Parlors, restaurants, wherever, and he would intentionally put up 999, 999.
I've heard that, and there's someone else that goes around maxing out every joust machine.
Yeah, that was Lon something, I forget that last name.
Yeah.
He did that many, many times. I did it on Defender a number of times, but in retrospect, it was the thing to do back then.
Yeah.
You know, a new Defender machines in the neighborhood, who's the first person to get their 999, 975 name up?
Yeah.
That's the only reason we did it. And then
That's funny.
We wanted to populate the entire leaderboard. So I hate to tell you this because it makes me sound like the jackass that I was back then.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You had only so many scores on the leaderboard in Defender.
Yeah.
So I kept putting up 999, 975, one after another. I start a new game, I do another one, and you can't play so many times in a given day, so it took a few days.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I come back and my goal of having the entire leaderboard saying Rob, 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 all of a sudden, who the hell is Leo?
Oh.
One name put up there, it just my goal of having all the 999.
Oh, you would have had them all. Oh, that's funny.
Unbeknownst to me, someone else in my neighborhood was getting good at the game, and all of a sudden put up their score.
Oh.
You know, they have every right to.
They ruined it for you. They got in under the wire.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you how shallow of a gamer I was back then to waste my time doing that. Not just once, but like 7 or 8 times in a row or 9 times in a row, just to try to get all the top scores.
Yeah.
But that was a thing to do back then.
Going back to Kaboom on our Atari 2600, there was some dispute years ago, and I have some notes related to it. I don't even remember the full context of it, but I figure since I got you here, I'll just ask what I have. Do you recall who verified it and why why the year 1985 was attached to it? Because it sounds like you submitted it much later than that, right?
The only, well, I wasn't even around as far as TG in 1985.
Yeah.
My Star Wars arcade score in 84, and the first score I submitted to TG was in 96 or 97. I don't know why they would put 1985. But the only TG referee for Atari 2600 was Corcoran.
Right, yeah, so it would have been him.
All my 2600 scores to Corcoran. And also my Magnavox Odyssey scores, the very few that I had, I sent to Corcoran as well. Unfortunately, some of them, he got arrested before he put them up, very few scores that they were. But most of my 2600 scores Corcoran received and he put up. If he made any typos, a lot of people told me on the forums, well, why didn't you, if you noticed that there's a typo there, why didn't you call up, Corcoran or tell him that you made a mistake?
Yeah.
Well, quite honestly, I didn't have the time of day to look at whether my scores were put up. I'd send the tape in the mail, and that was that. It's his responsibility. He's the other referee.
Yeah.
Their work as well as mine. And as far as me caring that it was put up at all, I discovered years later that some of my scores just simply never made it into the database. And the reason I know that is because these were event scores. Event scores were well documented. Why aren't they in the database after all this time? Because Corcoran never put them up.
Because, and then he got sent to prison.
And there's that. He went to prison. And after he's in prison, who's going to put him up now? There's no documentation of these scores other than there's a webpage that shows here's the final score results.
Yeah.
So really, it can be said TG should grandfather it in, but that's not Jace's position right now.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Made during events that never got put into the database, they're lost.
Yep. If Ron Corcoran had notes, those notes are long gone.
Yeah. So whatever made it into the database did, right or wrong. And as far as my having the personal time or inclination to check whether or not another referee made a typo on my score, I don't. I didn't. Back then, I wouldn't now. If I send in a score of, let's just hypothetically say, 85,600, and someone put in 85,610 on a game that doesn't have a 10-point object, someone would say, oh, the score must be bogus, take it down. Well, how is it my fault that someone stupidly keyed it in with a 10 at the end?
Right.
And that actually has happened in the past.
Yeah, wasn't there a thing with, like, there was something about your score on Enduro on Atari 2600 where, like, everyone else's was divided by 10, but yours wasn't?
And again, it was because my score wasn't entered by me. It was entered by Corcoran. And my score in Enduro was probably not even a top 5 score. It was probably something like 600 points or under 1,000 points or something. It was not a very good score. No. But I did not enter it.
Now, with respect, I have in my notes, I don't know if this is true, but I just have it in my notes. This is from some dispute from years ago, that Ron couldn't have done that because it happened while he was in prison. So it would have been someone else doing it.
And the only person that could have put the scores up, there's actually more than one person. It could have been Stephen Knox.
All right.
It could have been Todd Rogers. That's it.
I know Todd had access to it. Do you know why he would have divided a bunch of people's scores by 10?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I guarantee my score that was put up, I did not have a very good Enduro score. I probably got somewhere 600 points at best. I definitely did not get more than 1,300, 1,400 points. my score. It's not the case. My score was very low.
Yeah, or like, I guess what people are saying is that you had an extra 0, but I don't know the background. I'm just...
No, my score was pretty low on Enduro. It was not a great score.
Yeah, all right.
And I can tell you that TG referees, before I was even there, some TG referees made data entry mistakes like you would not believe. I was, when I first was aware of the TG website, I wasn't even an assistant referee back then. I noticed that there was the world record on Star Wars score was not mine. I put up 300 million points, and it took 49 and a half hours. But the world's record on Star Wars on the TG website was 6 billion. And I thought, how in God's name did somebody get 6 billion points
Yeah.
on Star Wars if it took me just about 50 hours to get 300 million? They would have to do that 20 times over. That would be 1,000 hours.
Jeez, yeah.
So I called up Walter, and Walter was trying to be funny. He goes, a team of people played the game out for, 200, hours or whatever the hell it is, which still wouldn't be enough to do it. You'd have to play it out for 1,000 hours.
Yep.
So eventually he realized they made a mistake, and that score was taken down. But a 6 billion score in Star Wars used to be in the TG database because they didn't check their work. It was garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
Just like I used to point out to Walter when I first was looking at the TG database, and this is shortly after his book came out. If you look at that first book of records, you're going to see a couple of real eye-openers. And I don't mean the scores, but I mean the names. You're going to see in a couple of titles, they had the scores that had the name that was on the leaderboard itself. Somebody submitted a screenshot of a leaderboard as if it was their own score. And then there were the BS names like Ku Klux Flintstone.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I said, Walter, you actually have accepted in your database a score from Ku Klux Flintstone? Are you kidding me?
So they just, took a photo of the leaderboard and just said, yeah, that's my score?
Yeah, they said, look, see third place over there? That's me.
God. That's crazy because all the,
I didn't even spot those. Some other eagle-eyed gamer who knows the leaderboards on those titles very well pointed out to me that, look at this over here. And I pointed right out to Walter. Look at this mistake.
That's crazy because Walter Day, and I think in the Blue Book and elsewhere, the 1998 Blue Book always talked about how if you're refereeing a score, you got to stay with them and you got to watch it because you got to make sure there's no added coins or added this or that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, do what I say, not what I do.
Yep.
He can say all he wants. I can tell you for a fact, Walter was not I don't want to say the best referee, but he wasn't necessarily the most diligent. What he said is not necessarily what he always did. Did he try to do a good job? Sure. Did he make mistakes? Sure. But did he make egregious mistakes? A few.
Yeah. So with these interviews, what happens is anytime I come across a good question for someone, I have a whole folder of possible interview questions and a bunch of people that maybe I get to interview them, and I just throw them in the file. It's just ask them this, ask them that. And now this is 5 years, from 5 years ago, but I have the question, did anyone claim your bounty on Atari 2600 Venture last year? I'm guessing that's 2019 or something at this point.
I thought that somebody did. Because the score that I put up, and this is funny, the score that I put up was around 40,000 points, and somebody might have been Rudy Ferretti, might have been some other rabble-rouser on the TG forums, claimed I could not have done this score because I never logged a good score on that title before. But how does that mean that the person couldn't do the score? Just because they never turned in a lower score before, they can't all of a sudden put in the top score? That's beyond the possibility.
It's true, yeah. You can't just... Some people don't want to submit their lower scores until they get something better.
It was not a difficult score to get, but I be the first or even second highest score on that title. By now, I'm sure that a bunch of people have done better.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked that up.
I just don't have the time to go through the teaching database and to see where my scores are because, quite honestly, there's just so many better things to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't even look at my my top score, which is my Star Wars score.
Yep.
I don't ever have to look at that score for one very important reason. There's nobody right now that's going to beat it, period. The one person that likely should have beaten it didn't because of preparation. Had Brandon Erickson prepared a little bit better, and had he had better luck at the hardware on his machine, I would simply be the second best marathon player on Star Wars Arcade. Because Brandon was, once he submitted his TGTS score, he was clearly the better player at that point in time. He just had the unfortunate mishap of coming to within 99.75% of my record. Which is pretty damn close.
Yeah. What do you remember about so you didn't attend Classic Gaming Expo 2004, did you, where Billy and Weeby met for the first time?
No, my first time seeing Steve Weeby was at the Fun Spot 2005 event.
Right, yeah.
And then after that, I never saw Steve Weeby again, but Billy Mitchell was not at Fun Spot that particular event.
That's true. Oh, so you've never seen Weeby again, even at with like a King of Kong promotion or anything, or?
No.
Wow. All right.
I'm looking, just as an FYI, I'm looking at the Atari 2600 leaderboard, and my score in Venture was 38,900 from September 2000, and somebody put up 40,000 points. It's predated before mine, which is 40,000. So while my score of 38,900 was questioned, when the higher score, which was already there, was 40,000 points, I won't understand. And then Greg Sampson put up 43,800, which also predates my score. I just don't, oh no, sorry, that's 2020. So yeah, somebody beat my score 20 years later, April 18th with 40,000, and somebody else beat it days after that with 43,800. And now the top score is Scott Stilson with 104,400.
Oh gosh, wow.
Yep, so of all the people that beat my score, that was Scott Stilson.
Well, you got to beat him back now, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, but I don't even have a TV set anymore. Never mind the 2600 console. I don't have any emulators downloaded other than MAME. I don't play these games anymore. I don't have time.
Just don't have time, yeah.
I have elder care responsibilities. I have a job.
Yeah, yep.
This is not my lifestyle again to try to beat these scores. It's just not on my to-do list. Period.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Oh, and I do have one bit of news to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
One of my cherished titles is an arcade/main title called Pandora's Palace. I'm actually one of the top 3 players at it, but now I'm one of the top 4 because some gamer named Andrew Barra put up a massive 12 million point marathon score on the title.
Ooh.
I watched it from start to end. I spoke to Andrew about his score extensively. I congratulated him on it privately, and we had some email exchanges. But every now and then, one of my old scores gets trounced. And this particular one was trounced, so I put the challenge out to him to try to beat my TGTS score, which is second place, and my special submission score, which is what's the most you can get in the first level and still escape the level on your first man. What's the highest score you can get in the first level? He hasn't done that yet. And that's actually a very tough challenge because it's point pressing like you can't do on that title.
Yeah, I've heard of this. I've heard of this Andrew Barrow fellow. He sounds like trouble to me.
He is a very skilled gamer. he has a number of records under his belt. This one took me by surprise because I had no idea he was even playing the title, but he completely mastered the title to the point that when I looked at him, I'm thinking, well, if I knew to do this years ago when I was still playing that game, I could have easily put this score up. Not a problem.
Yeah.
But I am not, out of respect for Andrew, going to all of a sudden start marathoning and using his own tricks against him.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I just don't do that.
That's amazing, though. No, he is a beast gamer.
Yeah. So I was very happy that I saw that 12 million point score because it broke the previous record of 5 million points, which I was the only gamer lucky enough to see as a referee.
Yeah.
No one knew how my friend John did it, and all of a sudden Andrew puts up 2.5 times that.
Yeah. About Billy and Weeby, they met at Classic Gaming Expo 2004, and like you said, you weren't there. What stories do you remember hearing about it? Like at the time, obviously that was right before the when Brian Koo and Perry Rogers showed up at his house.
Well, the only gaming event where Billy and Steve were at the same time that I'm aware of was the Pompano event. I really don't know much about the Classic Gaming Expo event.
All right, that's the one where they were going to swap posters for 1 million points.
I really don't know much about that.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I just had it on my list to ask about it.
No, I don't know much about that event at all. I'm only aware of the Pompano event, and that's only because of the footage that was in King of Kong.
Yeah, and the 2004 CGE was completely omitted from King of Kong. That was one of the things that people get upset about because they actually did meet and reportedly they both played, but I've heard conflicting stories on that end too.
Well, it's one of those little anecdotes from classic arcade gaming history where a few people know about it, but not many.
Yeah. So we've already talked about this, but I'm just going to throw out the question anyway. I'm supposed to ask how qualified do you think Walter Day was knowledge-wise to be in overall charge of the scoreboard? Because there's a lot of old threads that pop up where he's always passing the buck to the experts because he just doesn't know about the game.
Keep in mind, and you have to, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. What we know right now is in year 2026, when Walter started TG, it was 45 years ago. The knowledge base was a lot smaller.
That's true.
There was no internet to use as a resource. Contacting people was limited to phone numbers and physical mail, otherwise showing up at actual events. There was no emails back then. So Walter did, in my opinion, the best that he could under the circumstances. However, it was clear when you read the anecdotal evidence from certain things that were written from years ago and certain scores that were accepted, it was clear that some mistakes were made along the way. There's no doubt about that. But can you hold it against them? And that is one of those things I am not going to say yes or no, because put yourself in his position. What would you have done without the hindsight of knowing what you know now? How would you have done this non-paid volunteer, labor of love position?
Yeah, yep.
You do the best you can with the resources that you had available, and you wouldn't look back.
Yep.
So, did he make mistakes? Yes, and probably more than some people even know, and probably more than we will ever know. But can you hold it against him? No. Much as I don't like certain aspects of Walter, I cannot hold against him certain things that he did in yesteryear.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
With one exception. How he said he saw Roy Shildt get his 1 million point score in the 1985 Johnny Z event. I think he misremembered what he saw.
Right, that's that was the Vancouver event, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he misremembered what he saw, and he doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake. I think he just simply doesn't want to get on the bad side of the gaming community. And he's just doubling down. Whenever you ask him about it, he will say, well, I know I saw this. Well, how the hell did you not realize that this was happening on a game which had the keys were not present with anyone except the proprietor, and the game was set to the default settings? Why? Because fellow Missile Command expert Chris Ira got 1 million points at that event.
Oh, right, yeah.
And Chris Ira did not get 1 million points at TGTS, let me tell you. I wasn't there, but he's the first person to tell you that if asked, he did not get it on TGTS.
Yeah.
So how did Roy play TGTS? It's impossible.
Tournament settings, yeah.
Billy Mitchell got his 1,050,000 at the Mortgage Brokers event. Roy Shildt probably put up 695 or even 1,695,000 on marathon settings and said, oh, I got 1,695,000. Why? Because it beats my 1,004,000 from the Guinness event.
Yeah.
But the common sense about Roy's score is he says, and Roy's position on what happened that event was ever changing. I'm on record as saying every time a TG referee pointed out to him a hole in his story, he kept revising his story, trying to plug more holes. Eventually got to the point where he starts to revise the dates at which it happened.
Right.
And TG is trying to discredit me by saying it occurred on this date, and I can tell you it didn't occur on this date, it occurred on that date. Well, his own stories, I wish I had them all on tape, which who the hell takes people just for the hell of it? I don't. I know people probably do, but I don't.
Yeah.
Roy was constantly changing the story. And one of the key elements that he said was the sequence of events. He said that on that particular day, he played about 15 games, of which 6 were 1 million points or more, of which the last one was the record. So the first question I asked him, Roy, if you played 5 games before that were in excess of 1 million, why didn't you call over a TG referee when you knew damn well that once the score rolls over, you can't prove it unless they saw it?
Oh, right, yeah. I've seen a recap of, like, Roy's changing stories. I haven't quite gotten... At some point, I should go in and write the definitive piece on, like, okay, here's the whole Roy Shildt thing, because people often ask about that. They want to know, and it becomes this giant rabbit hole.
There is. It's like if you've ever seen the movie Ocean's 13.
I have not, unfortunately.
One of the scenes in the movie, they're trying to rob a bunch of diamonds on a rooftop, and they find that there's like 10 different blueprints of how the place is made. Because there's always a change in the blueprints. Roy's story is so changed so many times, nobody really knows what it was at any given point in time.
That's funny, yeah.
Which version happened first, which version happened second, because it's always changing.
Yeah.
One of the versions that Roy told me was that in his final game, he had 4 cities left at 1 million. Well, that led to my asking him a question, was, Roy, how the hell can you guard 4 cities through 1 million points, which is pretty damn hard to do, and then lose 4 of them in the space of 600,000 points?
Yeah.
Didn't make any sense. And one of the reasons his dates changed, why, is because Roy claimed that 2 specific people, among others, witnessed his score. He claimed that Chris Ira and Darren Harris, both were attendees, witnessed his score. The problem here, which Roy did not know, is Darren Harris saved his bus tickets from that trip. Don't ask me why, he just did.
He just did? All right, yeah.
Darren Harris said that at that event, I don't remember the sequence, either Darren arrived when Chris was leaving or vice versa. Either way, they were never at the event playing games at the exact same time. They literally crossed paths at the bus stop. So that shot a hole into Roy's story as far as who recognized his score as well as when, because they couldn't be there at the same time on that day. Which is why we said that TG had the dates wrong. Everything with Roy is changing his story to retrofit it to something that's actually plausible.
Right.
There's so many holes in his original version.
Yeah.
that's also the reason why when Walter reinstated Roy's scores, it's one of the reasons I left TG.
Yeah.
Because Roy's bullshit was among the biggest bullshit up to that point in time that TG had ever experienced.
Yeah.
Surpassed now by, certain other people, one of which is in Florida. Actually, two of which are in Florida.
Yeah. It's funny, though, because he did that, but then the next edition, after you left, the next edition of the printed Guinness book, Roy's scores were credited to, I forget the guy's name. I brought it up on my first interview with you, but like Walter Day's lawyer friend from Ottumwa. Oh, I forget the guy's name.
Who the hell is that?
Yeah, it was just very random. I could email it to you later, but it was Roy's scores. It was exact score, exact date and time of Roy's, but it's just, oh gosh, what was the guy's name? I forget. I'm trying not to bring up the internet while I'm doing recording on my laptop, but anyway, you mentioned Chris Ira. Tell us about some of your interactions with him.
Well, I only physically saw Chris Ira once that I vividly remember. He was at Fun Spot, and he was in a head-to-head Ms. Pac-Man match with Darren Harris. And if memory serves, they came to within 1,000 points of each other. That's how close they were.
Oh, wow.
They were in the 900,000 point range, around 921,000. It was the best side-to-side Miss Pac-Man performances of all time. And that was the one time I think I met him face-to-face. Otherwise, I largely dealt with him over the phone.
Oh, interesting.
Not often. It was typically when something was really of importance, such as the Steve Weeb Donkey Kong submissions. Why? Because we had nothing else to gauge whether or not a 947,000 score was even remotely possible. At that point in time, Billy's score of 874 was the TG recognized highest, and that was only because the score by Tim Serby was not recognized by TG because Walter didn't enter into the database.
That's right. There was a write-up. It was like semi-recognized for a moment and then taken it back or something.
Yep. So Chris Ira was my go-to person when it came to certain specific titles that he had expertise on. Largely it was Donkey Kong and Missile Command, and to a lower extent it was a game like Crash or Head On for the main platform, because Chris Ira was one of the top players on that. But that was really my only interaction with Chris Ira.
All right.
I never had a reason to call him up and say, hey, Chris, let's chew the fat, or any other reason, because I wasn't really friends with him. He was a contact person, sure, and one of Billy's friends, but he was largely a informational resource to me, a good one at that. But I never had a reason just to call him up out of the blue.
All right, it's interesting. Were you both at Fun Spot 2000?
It was not the 1999 event.
Yeah, not 99, but
it was either 2000 or 2001. I just can't remember which. Too many years. It's been 25 years now.
Yeah. But so you were both at that one. Is that when? Oh, that is when you met him, right?
Face to face, yeah.
Oh, all right, cool. All right, sorry, I missed that part.
Whether he was at another event, I can't remember. I do remember that the big problem in getting to the event was his wife letting him go. That much I remember. But and Billy, I think, told me that. But I do remember seeing him at one of the events for sure, because he was playing side-by-side Miss Pac-Man against Darren Harris.
Gotcha. And then, of course, there was he was one of the people pushing for a review of Abner Ashman's Miss Pac score. Did you interact with Chris directly on that?
Yes, over the phone. It was Billy and Chris and Rick Fothergill.
Oh.
All three of them.
Really?
The reason being is that collectively, the three of them, up to that point in time, had only encountered a full roster of, 8 kill screens?
Yeah.
7 times in their collective careers. Abner, 8 performances. Abner claimed to get 3 performances in a row of 8 kill screens.
Mm-hmm.
So they were saying that just simply doesn't make any sense. But Abner, unlike them, Abner was still actively not only just playing the game, he was playing it multiple times per day, every single day.
Yeah.
After kill screening Ms. Pac-Man 2, 3, 4 times a day. So if anyone was going to figure out what to do to flag 8 kill screens in a game, regardless of what tactic it required, if anyone was to discover that, it would be Abner. But they were saying that's still not possible, that it had to do with his board. And if I recall, Abner's board and his setup was a little different. Abner had to play the equivalent of I'll just put it this way, an AC game in a DC environment or vice versa.
Oh.
He had some kind of adapter that was used to allow him to play the game, period.
Mm.
And as the anecdote goes, Abner's board set, as well as that of Darren Harris, I paid for out of my own pocket. I sent it to a man named Spike from Lupine Systems, who was a then industry recognized expert at hardware and board sets. He reviewed the boards, and he came to the determination that there was no problem with the board itself, and that playing the board in the environment described, that AC/DC environment described, would not have changed the gameplay performance. It certainly would not have changed RNG or anything like that.
Yeah, because it's just a computer program running. Yeah.
Yeah, Billy and Chris and Rick said, of course, no, he still can't count it. But that was Billy trying to protect his good buddy Chris's top score.
Yeah.
But Abner's score was absolute. In November of the year that Abner turned his score in is when Walter Day, Brian King, who was the CTO for Twin Galaxies, and myself, we met with Abner and Darren, and that was when it was decided that we would pay, by we meaning me, we'd pay to have the boards tested. It wasn't much. It was like maybe $150 including shipping to and from. And when the results came back, we would honor the results, and the results were that Abner's performance was fine. So we recognized him as the New World's record holder, much to the chagrin of Billy Mitchell, etc.
All right. Yeah. Now I'm sort of familiar with a lot of that already, but I just wanted to confirm. You said that Rick Fothergill was casting doubt on Ashman's score alongside Billy and Chris Ira.
Well, Rick Fothergill originally was a doubting Thomas of Abner as far as Abner's overall skills, because Abner was claiming originally that he was able to get $1 million, $1.5 million on Junior Pac-Man, which at the time Rick Fothergill was not able to do.
Oh, all right.
Abner showed up at a Fun Spot event, and he blew past anything that Rick Fothergill thought was possible on Junior Pac-Man.
All right.
And Abner's Junior Pac-Man talent, I believe, came into play first before he turned in a Ms. Pac-Man record. If I remember correctly the sequence of events. All of them were suspect of Abner's Ms. Pac-Man scores because of the fact that he had 3 8-kill screen games in a row.
So Fothergill was kind of suspect of him in general, like something's wrong with this guy?
Not with the guy, but with the performances. They were all adamant. How can you get 3 in a row when we, over 20 years, only had 7 performances between us with 8 kill screens?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, just because we couldn't do it, no one else can.
Yeah.
That was basically their stance.
That's interesting. Was Fothergill calling you along with Billy or Chris, or was he?
No, he was going along with the other 2.
All right.
He wasn't the primary doubting Thomas.
All right.
That was Billy and Chris.
But Fothergill was just kind of going along with them?
Well, yeah, because he's an interested third party. Why? Because he's one of the many players that, had a great score in this Pac-Man.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never heard about that part.
Yeah.
Speaking of Pac-Man, this last October I got to visit Bill Bastable in October, and I was talking with him, and he said something where I'm like, wait, you've never spoken with Robert Mruczek, have you? So I got you two on the phone. What do you think about talking with him?
It was interesting because it's always, for me, it's always fun to speak to a recognized expert at a title for the first time, especially someone as illustrious as Bill Bastable with his achievements. So it was, of course, a welcome phone call to have. It was interesting to speak with them. Quite honestly, I don't remember the full extent of what we discussed, but of course, we discussed things about Super Pac-Man and the titles that Bill Bastable was good at.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I can't honestly remember what, if anything, else we talked about.
I don't remember either, yeah, to be honest. I just remember getting you two in touch with each other.
Yeah, but thank you for that. That was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you bet. I've got a few more questions. I can keep going probably another half hour or so.
Go ahead. I got time.
Awesome. Cool. Glad to hear it. There was a dispute at some point over a score on an Atari 2600 game called Bachelor Party, and you felt like the track itself should be taken down, and I copied this into my notes or something. Do you remember something about this?
I do remember at a point in time, I was still operating in the role of chief referee, and one of the decisions, or rather initiatives, that I wanted to take was to clean up the TG database from these porn titles. In other words, I didn't want to have titles like Bachelor Party and Custer's Last Stand. But I was, also on top of that, like Beat 'em and Eat 'em was another title I wanted to have taken down. But I was also pushing strongly for TG to not accept certain other titles and hypotheticals, such as I told Walter, TG has got to distance itself from integrity, because there's titles out there right now that we simply should not want to track. And I'll mention a couple of them, because at the time there were more, but I mentioned at the time Michael Jackson's Baby Drop. Do you know what that is?
Oh, God. Well, I remember the incident. I didn't know there was a game on that.
Oh, yeah, there was a game. Michael Jackson dropping babies out of a window, which you had to catch.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Why the hell should TG track that?
Yeah. Oh, there's some games out there that, yeah, no, I get you. I didn't realize this was one of those games. I just kind of had it on my list.
Yep. And I told him, and I was very public about this as well, I told him, hypothetically, Walter, there's games out there, and I mentioned a couple of titles at the time, where the goal of the game is to kill police officers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal of the game. It's like one of those Grand Theft Auto type games where basically it's just anarchy. You just run around killing police officers, often prostitutes. Why do we have to track that?
Well, it's difficult because Grand Theft Auto is a major series. Like, you would want to track that.
But the spirit of Grand Theft Auto is not wholly to do that.
Yeah.
But there were certain games where the number one purpose of the game was to do what I said.
All right, yeah, I get.
And these are the third-party games, thank God. They're not mainstream, but there were games out there which were basically kill the Jew.
Yeah.
Another game where it was a test scenario based on what happened on September 11th, flying planes into things like trade centers and the Statue of Liberty. I told him TG needs to keep its head high and not track these titles.
Just not track them, yeah. That makes sense.
And what happened when I publicly came out and said, these are the nature titles that TG will not track under any circumstance? Gamers are saying, who the hell are you to tell us what we can't play?
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm not telling you can't play it. I'm telling you, do not submit scores on it. We won't accept them.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, a few years ago, I think Will McAvoy on the site was trying to get that track taken down, but other people disagreed.
Mm-hmm. And I still feel strongly about that now, and I guarantee there's even more titles right now that are equally disturbing. But there were a couple that just went right into that no-no area where TG should just avoid it with its 60-foot pole. Do not trump these titles.
Yep. In 2002, Todd Rogers had like this ultimate time on barnstorming, which actually has been eclipsed in a couple ways. But there was a sequence of events, people called it into question, and you found your way to the Atari Age thread pretty quickly, the thread on the site Atari Age. Do you recall how all that went down? And
yeah, if I remember correctly, the barnstorming game in question is 1B. And at some point, Todd's record on barnstorming was around, what the hell was it, 32.7? Let me look up barnstorming game 1B.
Oh, yeah.
That'll refresh my memory better, because I don't remember the precision of it. Okay, barnstorming, here it goes. Okay, 32. Okay, Todd at one point had a 32.74, which is pretty good, but people have since beaten that. Todd had claimed a 32.50, and I saw 32.74. Let me put the phone down for a minute, because I have to look up the Atari 2600 time decker.
All right, yeah. Do what you got to do.
That actually has the standings of what Todd really did. Oh, the post requires moderator approval. That's Atari Age for you. They took down, I can't even look at my own post on the Atari 2600 time decker on Atari Age.
Oh, that sucks.
Yep. They took it down. I can't even look at it. So in any event, Todd got, in that event, I believe, he got a 32.74, which people said wasn't possible. And of course now, it's possible.
Yeah, that's feasible.
Todd, because the record's 32.64. Todd later had a 32.50. Now, I never saw that, but somehow that got into the database.
Supposedly had. I think that's cast doubt, but yeah, supposedly.
Yep. But then the bad one entered. It was 32.04.
Right.
I don't know who entered it. That was the one that somebody programmed out all of the pylons and the enemies.
Yeah.
And they flew straight across the screen, and they still couldn't get 3204.
Yep, that's right.
And
That's right.
Bob responded that he must have been playing a prototype cartridge. Quite honestly, that explanation he used more than once when one of his scores was called into question.
Yep.
That he must have been playing a prototype.
He also used that with the game Taz.
That's bullshit. Why is that bullshit? That's like if you've ever seen a Simpsons episode where they're talking with Lucy Lawless from Xena, and they say, "How did this happen?" And she goes, "Wizard did it."
Yeah.
Prototype cartridge. It's no different. It was his end-all, be-all explanation of why his bullshit score is in the database. Prototype cartridge.
Plus,
and quite honestly, I never understood how one person, a gamer, not even a collector, but a gamer, had access to so many prototype cartridges.
Yeah, he's such a liar. Plus, even if it was, okay, let's even take that for granted and say, okay, let's say it was a score on a prototype cartridge. It's still got to come down off the leaderboard. It wasn't the real game.
Yep.
But he never suggested that. It's just like, oh no.
Yep.
So full of shit.
Without diverting, there was a number of his scores that were, until they were all taken down lump sum, there were a number of his scores, and I mentioned this to you before, that were in the unbelievable range. And I personally asked him to give me documentation, video documentation on several of them, which after multiple attempts, he never did. Scores such as his scores on Dragonfire, Kaboom Game 1A. That was another one I wanted to see. What the hell? Superman, his 47 seconds or whatever performance he done Superman. That was another one. He just never, ever turned in his performances, ever.
Do you recall why you and also Ron Corcoran ended up on that Atari Age thread so quick? Because that was a different site. Somebody was bringing up the barnstorming thing, and suddenly you and Ron from TG were suddenly very quickly in the thread talking about.
I remember, as I remember it, and I can't again verify because I can't see the damn thread.
Yeah.
Because you have to be registered, and I guarantee Scott Stilton would decline if I decided to join my membership request. But I could care less. In any event, I remember defending Todd his 32.74 score because I physically saw it when he submitted it in AVI format for the Atari 2600 Time Decker.
Right, yeah.
I remember that distinctly. So I know he did that, regardless of what people said could not be done at the time. And I defended that score.
Yeah. And that is feasible. There were some doubts as to its feasibility for a while, but people realized that if you lift the plane up just a little bit above the ground, it goes faster. And that's what the kind of the key thing people were missing.
I'm looking at right now the top 5 scores, all of which are from 2018 through 2020, and they're all 32.72 to 32.64.
Yep.
So I guess in one way you can say that this exonerates me from my statement that yes, Todd Rogers did it.
Absolutely, I agree. Although Todd's 32.5 is still impossible.
I never saw it. I never suggested that, well, if Todd did it, it must be true. I never said that. I don't even know how it got into the database or who put it there. It's too late to determine that now. But somebody put it there.
All signs point to Ron Corcoran.
Or Todd himself, because at some point Todd put his own scores in, as you know.
That's true. Well, Corcoran was saying, oh, no, he definitely got that at this convention, which it seems very doubtful. I think it was Corcoran.
Well, if it was Corcoran, then I don't know what the hell Corcoran was smoking, because there's no way in hell you could do that.
Yeah, they're both just such liars.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them, the worst case that I ever heard from the two of them was Atari 2600 Ms. Pac-Man. I don't remember if I told you this, but for a brief period in time, they were each verifying each other's scores on this title.
Yeah.
And the world's record on Ms. Pac-Man typically took 9, 10, 11, 12 hours. So one day, one of them has a score of whatever it is, and then within 2 days, the other one turns in a higher score. And then this went back and forth about 6 or 7 times. And the first thought that occurred to me, Todd's not working, but Corcoran is.
Right.
How the hell is Corcoran, and he had a family, regardless of the details of that, how the hell is Corcoran have a job, and he's playing this 9 to 12 hour performance, and he's watching Todd's 9 to 12 hour performance back to back to back to back? How the hell is he doing that? And that's the first red flag to me that this is just bullshit.
Yeah. I have in my notes that on New Wave Outpost, you said of Ron Corcoran that you very publicly, or that you were very clear in denouncing him after the stuff came out, and that also a fellow board member of yours, TG board member, also did the same. Are you referring to Todd or Billy?
That decried what Corcoran did? No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about either Brian King or Stephen Knox.
Oh, all right. I assumed it would have been one of them.
Stephen Knox was Corcoran's, one of his close friends. Brian King was our chief technical officer, but also friends with Corcoran. It was probably Stephen Knox, because Stephen wasn't a board member, but if it was a board member, it was Brian King.
All right.
The one that did not publicly decry what he did, who should have, is Walter.
Walter, yeah, I was about to say. Obviously, like, most everyone was going to be appalled by what he did and condemn it, but I know that bit about it, how Walter Day kind of didn't really... He was encouraging you and Todd to keep writing him in prison.
Which I was actually just going to mention to you.
Yep.
Yes, he did. And neither Todd and I wrote to Corcoran.
Good.
I just couldn't stomach the thought of it.
Yeah.
It was very disheartening personally to me to have to get a phone call one day from Rhonda Corcoran, his wife, and she very tearfully had to ask me what, if anything, I knew. And I told her point blank, because Corcoran's daughter was the only one that I ever spoke to on the phone briefly before, because she used to pick up the phone and very politely say Corcoran residence, and I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And she would call her father over the phone. I spoke to Ron for however long we did. And I told his wife, that's the only, extent that I ever knew of, your daughter, was when she would pick up the phone and say Corcoran residence, and that was it. Ron never mentioned a word to me about it, period.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I believe it. None of y'all had any idea. That's crazy shit.
This was a gut punch. I remember being told it was Billy that called me up and told me what happened with Corcoran, the details.
Jeez.
And at the time, he found out. And I think that Billy got the call from either Brian King or Stephen Knox.
All right.
And Corcoran was arrested at his place of business.
Yeah, Ron was.
Corcoran at the time had a government job, so you can imagine what being a fly on the wall there would have been like.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right in the presence of your fellow government employees.
Yep.
He was arrested, and they're just simply not going to arrest you. They're going to say you're arrested because of this and this. So everyone around heard of what he did
Ooh.
at that point in time.
I don't know if they say it publicly like that when they do it, but everybody would have found out eventually.
In TV shows, anytime I watch Law and Order SVU, they say you're under arrest for the rape of this, and they say it right in front of whoever's around. They don't care.
That's just television, though. That doesn't. That's just television. They make shit up. That doesn't count.
Yeah, whether it happens for real, I don't know, because I don't really know that many people that ever got arrested in front of me.
Yeah. But everyone in that workplace would have found out, and we're not going to get into details. If you know, or else folks listening to this can look it up, but they would have found out. Ron, I forget the year, but at some point he's going to be let out of prison.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that's going to happen soon. That's
Yeah.
right there. I do know that if he ever gets let out of prison, there is no way in hell I'm ever going to communicate with him. I want nothing to do with that man. Nothing.
Yeah, hopefully they don't allow him at gaming events.
I honestly hope he never gets out.
Yeah.
After what he did for that many years, an Army Ranger to do that?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
It's, yeah. Hey, let's change the subject to something more positive.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell us a little bit more about your experiences at the early Fun Spot tournaments. I mean, I know you've talked a lot about it, but is there anything else that we haven't really covered that you remember from those early tournaments?
Well, yeah. The very first tournament was, of course, May 1999.
Yep.
And that was in terms of the first gaming tournament, not the coronation event that took place before that, I think. But in the gaming event, when I showed up with my friend John Dworkin and my friend Stanley Rue, both from New York, we were kind of the odd men out because we were one of the few that never really met the other gamers that were there, at least the named gamers. And a lot of gamers that had world records were there, and they all knew each other from previous events. So when we, at our first opportunity, went to lunch across the street from Fun Spot at JT's Barbecue, which was there, we were at a table by ourselves, and there was another larger table with about 12 people, maybe more, and of course there was Billy holding house over there with everyone, because Billy was Billy. He was the one that everyone looked up to back then. We had no idea who the hell, we knew who Billy Mitchell was only from the name that we would see in the various gaming magazines like Joystick and Electronic Gaming's Monthly, but beyond that, we didn't know who Billy was personally. We never spoke to him.
Yeah.
It's just like I never, except from 1984, around August over the phone, when Walter called me up about my Star Wars score, I never physically spoke to Walter in person ever. That event was the first time I ever saw Walter Day.
Interesting.
But beyond that, of course I got to meet a lot of the other people there. for the first time, and it wasn't until the second event that I started to make friends over there, really, because the first event was, generally basic meet and greet, but not really exchanging phone numbers or anything. The second event was, okay, I remember you from last year, and by the third event, which was around May of 2001, I was already acting as a contributing editor for TG at that event.
All right.
But it wasn't until the 2002 event that I was operating as chief referee.
All right, interesting. Okay, so by the fourth event.
Yeah, but the first event was unique because at that event it got the most press coverage.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to see Rick Fothergill for the first time. I said hello to Billy Mitchell, and of course I said hello to Walter Day. And that was pretty much about it. A couple other people I said hello to. But it wasn't really until the 2000 event and thereafter that I started to make friendships with some of these gamers.
All right, yeah. What do you know about because Walter Day? So the story of Twin Galaxies kind of ends in 1984. The story that Walter Day tells, and then there's this dark period, and then it begins right around the time he's putting together that blue book. But in reality, they kind of restarted the Twin Galaxies arcade a few times. Billy owned it once. They tried reopening it at a mall. Do you know anything about like that kind of period of Twin Galaxies?
Very little.
All right, yeah, that's fair.
Very little. The reason being is that keep in mind that during that era, the in-between era, there was no internet.
Yeah.
Once I submitted my score to TG in 1984 in January, I actually thought that the end of TG was around 87 for some reason.
I think that's kind of accurate, but Walter Day likes to stop telling the story around 84, 85 because.
But really, I had no reason to stay in touch with TG.
Yeah.
The communication I had with TG wasn't even communication. I would see the Twin Galaxies Intergalactic scoreboard in those gaming magazines. Other than that, I knew nothing about TG.
All right.
And then at some point, the book came out, and then that's when somebody told me there's a book about gaming records out. I didn't even know it was out. Somebody went to Barnes & Nobles and spotted it.
Oh, cool.
And when I got the book there and I perused through it, I only had one score with TG, and out of curiosity, I went right there to see if it was there, and sure enough, it was there. And I called up Walter to say hello. I'm the one who's the record holder here. I just wanted to say, hello and introduce myself since we haven't spoken in how many years. And that was way back before the first Fun Spot event. It was between 96 and 97. And then as the Fun Spot event drew nearer, that's when Walter told me that there's an event that's being organized, and could I attend? And that's when I said, what are the details? And I got the details, and then two of my friends and I went there, and we attended the first Fun Spot event, which is when I got to meet him in person for the first time.
Nice, heck yeah. Who are your friends? Were they anyone that anybody might know from TG Past, or just a couple friends?
From the first event, again, I really didn't make any friends at the first event. It was just, people I met.
Yeah.
Like Steve Krogman, Billy Mitchell, Rick Fothergill, of course, and some of the other attendees that were there. As the events progressed, I got to meet like Fred Pastor, the Carnival champion, Mike Stuhler, who was one of TG's senior referees at the time, and then the New Hampshire crowd. Little by little, between 2000 and 2001, I would get to meet little by little the Crams, Donald Hayes, Greg Bond, David Nelson, players like that. Adam Wood, who pretty much no longer shows up to the events, and a number of other players that attended the earlier events. I got a chance to meet.
All right. You participated in one of the recreation shots of the Life magazine photo shoot, and this was shown in Chasing Ghosts.
Yes, that was the highlight of what the producers, Mike Verrecchia and Lincoln Ruckey, I forget which one was the director, wanted to do. They wanted to recreate iconic photograph. And, of course, the people would largely be the same with some exceptions because Todd Rogers was there and I was there.
Yeah, Todd was there.
And one of the interesting things about the shooting for this particular photograph recreation was it was about 5 minutes before they had to take the picture, before the duration of whatever that contract they had was to shut the street down. And a certain person whose name I need not mention still had not shown up yet. And then lo and behold, from around the corner of the building, as if by magic, someone walks out with his American flag tie and his mullet.
I knew who you were referring to, yeah.
He knew damn well he was waiting there the whole time, cutting it to the last second.
Yeah.
Who was he kidding? He didn't just drive up and show there because he was delayed in traffic. He was there waiting.
Yeah.
It's like I knew that Steve Weeby's kid was being coached to say that. I know that Billy was there waiting the whole time.
Yeah. I've chatted a little bit with Wolf Morrow. What do you remember about working with him, your working relationship with him?
Well, being that this is being recorded, I'm not going to temper my words, but I'm not going to use harsh words. Wolf was a great referee. He was very knowledgeable, him and his brother. They had more knowledge of the technical side of the website than I did. They were the ones that Walter relied on for HTML changes to the TG front page and things like that. He trusted them with doing that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they could do that. I couldn't. I was never a technical person, but they were. Him and his brother Mike kind of flaked out at some point. I won't go into details.
All right.
But Wolf was always, fine. I never had a problem with him. Post-TG, I had to kind of block him on Facebook because he has a tendency to, when you post something on social media, to fact check it, and when it doesn't come up as true, he kind of blasts right back at it. And when I post something, I just spotted this on social media, please don't fact check me on it. I don't fact check myself.
Oh, that's too bad.
So I just don't need that.
All right, yeah.
But other than that, he's a great person. Him and his brother, and I hope they're both doing well right now. But I never had a problem with Wolf Morrow as a referee.
All right, nice. He seems like a good guy. He did on social media fact check me on something once, and he was actually incorrect on it, and somebody else replied before I could.
Well, there you go.
So, but he seems like a good guy. I didn't bring up his name to smack talk him or anything. Another person I've only had good experiences with, who was a TG referee for a long time, J.D. Lowe. You remember working with him? Any good memories?
Yeah, J.D. Lowe was another one from my early days with TG. It was Jeff Lowe. If I'm not mistaken, Stephen Knox and Corcoran were there first, and J.D. Lowe was recommended by Corcoran at some point thereafter. Same for Brian King. So Jeff came in as a referee at some point after I was already chief referee, but I never had a problem with him.
All right, thanks. Any particular thing you remember working with him on?
Very little. I can't remember the details, but I remember Corcoran was Atari and television. Stephen Knox was, if I remember correctly, ColecoVision and maybe Commodore 64. I can't remember what J.D. Lowe was in charge of. It's been too many years.
Yeah.
But back then, people were assigned specific platforms. I just can't remember what he was assigned back then.
It's been. Let's see. Going back to Mark Alpiger and his site, a lot of your posts on ClassicArcadeGaming.com, they were edited to just say deleted. Was there a story behind that? I guess it was you who did that?
That was me, because what happened was, and most people don't know this, but I decided at one particular point, and I'll tell you the reason why later, I decided to systematically delete as many posts as I can out of, let's just say, annoyance. Mark Alpinger, and more specifically, his moderator involved on his website, because Martin Bedard at Sean Cram's arcade, the Cram Arcade, he got a world record on a game called Rampart. In fact, he figured out a way to pretty much marathon the game.
Oh, wow.
And the Mark Buhlman was the moderator, fellow Star Wars player. And I posted that Martin figured out a way to do this. And Mark Buhlman was basically saying, bullshit, can't be done. Have Martin come on this website and say that, how he did it. I said, Martin doesn't make posts on this website. I am telling you what we saw, all of us there, at the Cram Arcade. I'm telling you what he did. He says, not good enough. Have Martin come over here or else I'm not believing this. I got so pissed off at Buhlman getting on his freaking podium that I decided, screw this. I am not going to allow Pigger, as I like to call him, to benefit from all of my knowledge posted on his website. I did that for two reasons, which I'll tell you in a minute.
All right.
And I started to delete all my posts rapidly until I got maybe 80 posts in when someone caught me, and I think it was Buhlman, and they locked my account.
Yeah.
But the reason I got so pissed off at doing this was besides Buhlman acting like he was on his high horse, but because after I got left TG, I went to Mark Alpinger's site, and I started to post there. And if you look at Mark Alpinger's website, he has a stats section there. And it shows you exactly how many new users there were and what the page count is at any given point in time for the years. So from the moment I joined Mark Alpinger's website, his posts and his page counts climbed dramatically. And never once did he attribute that to me, even though that's exactly why they increased so dramatically and when. So because of that, and because of Buhlman being as obnoxious as he was, I decided I'm going to start deleting all of my posts.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why.
See, I got to be honest with you. I'm disappointed because when I go through as a historian trying to research all this stuff, some of that stuff was great material, and some of it's archived on Wayback Machine, and some of it isn't. So I go back, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could find what Mruczek wrote here, But obviously, it's your right to do as you wish. It just disappointed me when I came across it.
Well, the funny thing is, according to Mark Alpinger, there are posts on this where he lashed into my doing that action. He said that it's basically his website and he has the rights to all the posts and nobody else has the rights to delete that, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a crap about that.
I think I've seen that, yeah.
So here it is. I left TG at the end of 2026 and got into a blow-up with Walter after the 2007 Gamers Edition came out, which was in February of 2008. The 2007 Gamers Edition by Guinness.
Right, yeah.
And where they had that thing about Roy Shilt's score being better than Tony's.
Oh, yeah.
Settings. I got so pissed off at Walter that I blasted him on the TG forum, and that's when Walter knocked me off the forum into guest status.
Right.
So at that point, I went to Alpinger's site. Now, I'm looking at classic arcade gaming right now in the more stats section. In 2006, he had 813,000 new posts and 126 new members and 51 people online. In 2007, before this happened, he had 2,000 posts, 309 new members, and 96 people at most online. Now came to when I joined in 2008.
Yeah.
13,500 posts, 214 new members, and 139 people online. And if you go back granular into the exact month that I joined in his site, all of a sudden the posts just started to climb.
Yeah.
Most people started online started to climb. And not once did that guy's ego ever allow him to say, yeah, well, there's a reason why it jumped the way it did. Robert from Twin Galaxies shifted to here, and he also convinced some of his other gaming friends to come here as well.
Right, because the TG forum wasn't. Yeah.
Yep. So because of that and because of Bullman, I did what I did. Now, what I should have done is I should have waited until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to do it, because then they both would have been asleep, and then I could have deleted a whole bunch of more posts.
Oh, right, yeah.
But I was so ticked off that I shot from the hip, and I just started to delete right then and there. It was probably 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So Bullman was still, the night owl that he was. He caught it before it got too deep in. I maybe had 2,000 posts, and I deleted only 80 of them. But had I waited, the damage I could have done.
Yeah, and once again, I'll be honest with you, I'm glad that more weren't deleted, but I understand where you're coming from.
I appreciate that from a historical point of view, but you can see the reason why I did it. You may not agree with it, but that was the reason why I did it.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
I just didn't want that man and his moderator to benefit from all my wisdom as intellectual property rights on their site, because I was the one that wrote it, I was the one that posted it there. I don't care what his rules on the site say. I could care less.
Yeah. I asked earlier about Billy's the 1.014 submission, the tape that he withdrew, but then he brought to the New York Center. Did he ever tell you where he claimed it was performed?
No. I do remember him saying that after Steve Wiebe got the 1.006 million, he called up Steve Wiebe and told him that he got that score about a year earlier.
But never said where?
He just simply said when. It was very important to Billy to stress that he did it first.
Yeah, of course.
Because he was now faced with the premise that someone other than himself would be recognized as the first million-point scorer on Donkey Kong.
Mm-hmm, right, yeah.
Which is why that South Park episode, Bashing Billy, is spot on, because it basically portrayed him as someone that has to be number one in everything.
Yep. That came on TV the other day. I watched it again.
Yeah, that was just spot on, that post.
It was, yeah. Earlier we talked about the Atari 2600 emulation split, and it was like super unpopular with like a couple people. Was there anyone besides Scott Stoffen that was really against the split?
Against the split? Not really. It's
right.
just people didn't care. That was the problem. They didn't care.
Yeah.
There was one person on the forums that made us think about the Pitfall score. I can't remember who it was. And another one, could be the same person that made us think about the decathlon score. But it was really only, at best, 2 people, Stilfen of which was leading the drive to have it split. And then Stilfen, which was blasting the way it was split.
I was supposed to say, so he wanted it split?
Well, the call was being made to split because TG had commingled for years on the corporate emulation versus non-emulation. So for years, the call was, well, split it. But there was never any compelling reason to do so, and I fought against that for years. 2 titles alone, Decathlon and Pitfall, by itself does not warrant splitting the entire TG database into 2 for this platform. It just didn't. You want to split it for 2 titles, that's one thing. But then again, TG has no records indicating which is emulation versus original anyway. So who are you really benefiting by doing this?
So I guess I'm confused. So he wanted you to do the split, but then he was angry at you for doing it?
He was angry at the way it was done.
Way it was done, okay.
He claims, if you read the post, that some of the things that I listed as emulator were really not, or vice versa.
All right.
He said you should have, and this is the ironic part, he says you should have talked with an expert like Todd Rogers. Which is funny because not only did I talk to Todd Rogers about this, but look the way things turned out with Todd Rogers in the years to come. So the irony there is unmistakable. But as far as Scott Stelfen is concerned, the damage was done.
Yeah.
He said you should have reached out to some of these people. Now, some of these scores were out there for years. They were from 10 years prior in some cases. I reached out to whoever I could on the TG site. I did have no inclination of doing online research to try to track down a John Doe from Saskatchewan that made this one score from 10 years ago.
Yeah, for real.
In case he can give me some background on it. Yeah, good luck. Give me a staff of 20 people and I'll do it, but it was just me.
Yeah, yep.
To some extent, Todd. And I did all the grunt work. Todd was just consulting only. So what this guy was doing was effectively backseat driving.
Yeah,
Granted, he might have had more of a knowledge of this is only emulation, this could be both. Granted, he did. I'm not going to deny that he did, but don't tell me the way it should have been done, because you yourself did absolute bupkis to contribute up to that point.
Yeah. I swear I've seen threads full of like a few individuals just complaining so much about how you trusted this person or you did that, and I'm just like, I just know if that person were put in your position with your authority, they would have made all the same mistakes.
And not only that, look at who I trusted. Todd Rogers.
Yep. But
I didn't have any other resource.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
None. Maybe I had as a resource at the time, and keep in mind, this was done post-Corcoran, so Corcoran couldn't be a resource. So when you take away Corcoran, who was the worldwide Twin Galaxies Atari referee? Todd Rogers.
Yep.
Why should I not use Todd Rogers as a resource? He's the worldwide referee for Twin Galaxies in terms of the Atari platform. Why should I not rely on him?
Yeah.
And as far as other resources potentially, who else has knowledge of the 2600 that's a TG referee that I can count on? At best, Stephen Knox and Brian King.
Yep.
At best. And whether I consulted with Brian, probably not. Did I consult at some point with Stephen Knox? Possibly, because he might have reviewed some of Corcoran's scores, because Corcoran was not supposed to self-enter his scores in the early on periods. He was supposed to submit it to Stephen. Just like if Stephen did a score on the platforms he was stewarding, he was supposed to submit to Corcoran, such as the ColecoVision scores.
Yeah, that's right.
And things were back then, because how many TG referees did we have at some point in time? Like 5.
Yeah. Yep.
Not exactly like you had a lot of resources.
Yep.
So a lot of what Stilson said as driving the pack was his own hindsight. And he himself did nothing to help. All he did was bash.
Yep.
Right or wrong, as far as what he found, he bashed.
Yep.
And as far as if you ever read the sequence of posts that I made, where I said, here's where we are now, here's where we are now, here's where we are now, I basically kept documenting along the way all the things I did since my last post. It was fully transparent. There was nothing being done behind the scenes other than I'm consulting with Todd Rogers.
Yeah.
And the decisions made. And was it perfect? No. But am I going to sit there and, do endless research on something that has a net impact of 0 in the TG database? Because how many records does this mean? It means you're going to shift it from one category to another?
Yeah.
What's the net impact in terms of record gains? None. It's the same quantity of records. It's just a reclassification. So look at how much effort was put into this.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, after all these years, what did it gain by doing that? Nothing. Now what you had is you had gamers, they would submit to TG one record, and this is the point I made to Walter up front, one record on the original, one record on the emulation, and then you'd have one record on whatever, PAL, or PAL, MPAL, BAL, whatever it was.
Yeah.
3 different records instead of categories instead of one, and you had people submitting the same score, game skiing, game 1B, on all 3 categories. Here's the PAL submission, here's the NTSC submission, and here's the emulator. So now they get 3 records instead of 1. And who was one of the first people to do that? Scott Stilson.
Oh, right, yeah.
What a surprise.
Yep. And they act like some of these guys act like you should have known all along that Todd and Billy were frauds, but like pretty much everybody in that community just thought they were legit.
Well, as far as Todd goes, I did mention that there was a couple of the scores that I had questioned Todd about and said I need documentation on, which he never submitted. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt to take the time to find his documentation.
Yeah.
And every time we asked him, it was always, it's buried in a stack of about 500 tapes. Well, Guess what? I had, if you've seen Chasing Ghosts, I had a stack of about 1,600 tapes sitting in my, the corridor between the kitchen and my parents' bedroom, and it was just sitting there, a stack almost the size of a refrigerator of all these videotapes because I got nowhere else to put them.
Yeah, yep.
And that basically was an impediment to family going about its business for a few years. So if I can find tapes within 1,600 tapes, Todd, you should be able to find it among yours.
Yeah,
especially if you're not working.
Yeah.
And still he couldn't find it.
So I'd like to start winding down on a positive note. During the last interview, you talked about how, unfortunately, Walter Day spent all his promotional time on Billy, and you made an effort to promote other gamers who weren't getting that sort of attention. Do you recall some specific stories of other gamers that you made a point to promote in that fashion?
I mentioned to you, among others, I mentioned to you that somebody turned in a world record on Adventures of Lolo. I promoted that.
Right.
Somebody turned in, I think it was Tom Vitava. He turned in the world's, at the time, only marathon record on Game Boy Missile Command. I promoted that. Of course, Donald Hayes, who was turning in one world record after another, I was promoting each and every single one of Donald Hayes' record. Jason Cram did a Congo Bongo world's record. Greg Bond did a new world's record on Mappy, and I think maybe Bubbles at the time. I promoted that. Greg Irway did one on Wild Western. Anyone that turned in a world record that was significant or semi-significant, I would promote. I even did a write-up on Rudy Ferretti on Jaws.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, Walter would never promote a game on, like Jaws. But
yeah. Yep.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought it was worth it. And, of course, I promoted any other, records that came in that I thought were, outstanding and worth mention. I promoted, at the time, Michael Damiani's Dance Dance Revolution score. I promoted his Zelda score, which unfortunately turned out to be bogus. I promoted TG's first recognized time score, fastest completion on Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because TG didn't do time before.
Yeah. And as I understand it, this was the first time I wrote an article for the TG site that crashed the site.
Ha!
Yep.
So wait, that would have been, that would have been basically the first Twin Galaxies speedrun, right?
Yep. And here's an interesting note. I also did the first, the Steve Wiebe score of 947 Can Donkey Kong, which crashed the website twice.
Oh, wow. All right. Wow.
In one day. And also, the way that I tracked that score and came up with the hypothetical scoring potential, to this day, is used on the Donkey Kong 4.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What I did was I came up with a couple of, as far as analytics, I would come up with what was the score after the second 2-3, because I used that as a benchmark because of the anecdote of Billy Mitchell being able to get 50,000 points at the end of score level 2-3 all those years ago, his best performance. Then I said, what was the best performance that he claimed at the end of 4-5, which was probably 130,400. So I would look at whatever new score came in, and I would calculate, okay, Steve Wiebe had up to this point, he had on score stage 4-5, he had 121,000, could have had theoretically 9,000 more, or somebody could have had 9,000 more. Then I said, okay, the best performances ever witnessed in a the Donkey Kong performance from levels 5 through level 21. The best barrel performance, the best conveyor belt, the best elevator, the best rivet stage.
Yeah.
And you take the rivet, the pie factory, the elevator, you multiply that by whatever the hell it is. There's 17 different levels, so you multiply it by 17. The barrels, you multiply by 51.
Yep.
Add them all up together. And theoretically, assume that was all on your first guy. Then you figure you use 3 men to max out one of the final barrel or rivet stages, 10,000 points each. You add that, and you factor in for the final guy the 1,400 points maximum that you can make in the final stage of the game, whatever the maximum was, and that's your theoretical maximum on Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah.
And I came up with that way back then, and I speculated that 1.2 million was definitely doable. 1.25 million was doable, but required a lot of luck. And 1.3 million was on the outskirts of what was remotely possible.
Yeah.
And here we are all these years later, and where is that record? Right between where I said is possible, between 1.25 and 1.3.
It's pretty accurate. 1.3 might be possible one day.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. But you've got to have the RNG gods in your favor.
Yep.
And there are rumors out there, and it all depends on whether they're bullshit or not. There are rumors out there that you can control the RNG as far as barrels, depending on the count of how many barrels you hit along the way. I mean, I've heard so many stories on what is and is not possible on this title. I have to imagine that there's some truth to some of them.
Yeah, I don't know, because people have some weird myths about Donkey Kong cabinets, and like this board is spookier than that board, or like Robbie Lakeman meddling with the voltage.
Well, the funny thing is, in Karl, I think it was, that's where I was talking about how the board set at Fun Spot was possessed.
Right.
That was quoting something that Billy told me, because his problem with that board set was that it would throw out an inordinate amount of wild barrels.
Oh, that's funny.
I remember distinctly, it was one of the first 3 years at Fun Spot. Billy was playing Donkey Kong, and he was up to midway, up to $1 million. He was at least 300,000 to 400,000, and something happened, and he just banged his fist against the screen. Honest to God, if I was the proprietor, I would have thrown his ass out of there.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But he was complaining about there being an inordinate amount of wild barrels, and I just took it that some machines are, worse than others in terms of RNG. Just luck of the draw.
Yep.
Some machines could be better, some machines could be worse. This one, for whatever the hell reason, seems to be worse because the top players all seem to be saying the same thing. As it turns out, that was BS because Steve Wiebe came in 2005 and he smoked the game with 985,000.
That's true. And I've talked to some of the Donkey Kong experts on this, and they assure me, nope, all that stuff about haunted boards and stuff. I mean, obviously on its face it seems silly, but they're like, nope, it's just people just get bad luck, and they just don't see it as bad luck.
Yep. The only thing about Donkey Kong that I always wondered about, and I never got a definitive response on, when I found out that there was more than one different type of Donkey Kong board set out there,
yeah,
I was told, for instance, that I don't remember the specifics, it's been too many years, that there was like a -14 board, a -16, -17, all those different versions of it. I was thinking to myself, maybe that's what Roy was trying to do with sending boards to Steve Wiebe, which was trying to find the most favorable of the board sets possible. Possible that some boards were more harsh than others. I just don't know. I never found out definitively if all these board sets played identically or if some were harsher in terms of wild barrels. I never found out.
That's interesting. That's not a bad theory.
But it could explain a lot if someone was to find out for sure how these boards behave. I don't know. I don't even know to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the experts have told me that no, they all behave the same, basically the same RNG.
Well, that's not stating that about different board sets. That's stating about in general. But what about those specific different ROM sets?
ROM sets.
I don't know.
I guess maybe I don't want to talk out of turn. Maybe there's like some different between the ROM set, but
yeah. And if there is, what is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why it would be nice if somebody could research this and say definitively, yes, it is possible that some board sets are harder than others up to a point, and here's what that point is and why. May not be a lot of points in the long run, but it may be enough that this board set is more favorable than that one, this one's less favorable. I don't know. I would love to find out before the day I die.
Yeah. All right, I got one last question for you. This is the toughest question, maybe the toughest question you've ever been asked. I don't know if you're ready for this.
Go ahead.
And if you don't want to talk about this, that's fine. I actually cut off a little silence, so if you want, I can just cut this out of the thing, and then no one will ever know I asked this. But
as long as it's not about details about Corcoran, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's not about Corcoran, both the last two times I've interviewed you, I got a lot of people telling me they want me to ask you about the art collection.
Well, ever since, I'd say before George Bush got elected, I sold off about, I'd say, almost half my art collection was sold off. About 40% of it, I should say, was sold off. And then I stopped because George Bush changed the tax laws. It used to be that you would get a Form 1099-K if you sold both in excess of $20,000 and 200 or more transactions within the same fiscal year.
Yeah.
It changed it so that you get a 1099-K if you sell in excess of $600 regardless of how many transactions. The problem with my artwork, of course, is, when you collect certain things, especially when you have hundreds of thousands, you don't necessarily keep the paperwork on every single damn thing you buy.
Right, yeah.
So if you don't have the paperwork, how do you prove how much of that is profit and how much is loss?
Right.
How much is break even? So I decided at that point in time, stop selling it until the laws were changed, and I believe that laws were recently rolled back to the point that you can sell them again. I just haven't had the time to do so.
You just haven't, yeah.
At some point, my plan is to sell all my remaining artwork except for about 50 to 100 pieces that I really like, and just get rid of the rest. Let someone else enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot of art.
Yeah, and as far as what I didn't realize coming into it, because some of the pieces are small, they're like 8 by 10. Some of them are larger, 18 by 24, and some of them are even larger than that. What I didn't think about properly, because I was buying these things through 2008, which is 20 years ago almost.
Yeah.
And I was 20 years younger just about. What I didn't think about is, well, if I sell these 20 years down the line, I'll be around 60, 65 range. Do I really want to be packing these things up and lugging them to the post office then?
Yeah, for real.
That's what I didn't think about.
Yeah.
So now I have between 800 and 1,000 pieces, maybe 800, and I have to, one by one, take the pictures, list them, pack them, take them to the post office. This is not something I'm looking forward to, but at the same time, I don't want to lug around all these boxes for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I have to make a decision in terms of how am I going to get rid of these things.
Yeah, for real. If you got to move for some reason, that's a lot to move.
It's a lot. Literally, it takes up 2/3 of a room all by itself. That's how much I still have left. They're neat in boxes and everything, but collectively they take up a lot of space.
Oh, yeah. Now you were telling me once that you got some good deal. Like people were like, "Oh, he spent $80 gazillion on this one piece or whatever," because you said it was worth that. But in reality, you got pretty good deals on some of it, right?
It depends. Sometimes you invest in an artist and the artist takes off. Sometimes the artist dies. Sometimes the artist that you thought was going to take off just didn't. So, it's hit or miss. It's like investing in sports cards.
All right.
You can invest in a great rookie. You can invest in someone that turns out to be a lemon, or turns out to get his ass jailed, and all of a sudden his rookie card that you spent $3,000 on is worth buckus.
Oh gosh, right. Well, sometimes they go to jail and the rookie card's worth a lot. Sometimes.
Yeah, I will share one thing with you.
Yeah.
Back in August of 2023, you wouldn't know this because I never mentioned it. I collect trading cards.
Yeah.
Non-sports. That would mean not sports.
All right.
For instance, cards like Star Wars cards and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and things like that.
Magic the Gathering, or?
Not that. That's collectible gaming cards. That and Pokemon's different.
Gotcha. Cool.
In August of 2023, I made a decision to part ways with my cherished Star Wars set, which was 330 cards. It was all graded by PSA. It was graded out of 330 cards. I had 218 in PSA 10, and the rest were all in PSA 9.
Yeah.
I sold it through Robert Auctions, a major auction house. Card number 1, all by itself, I had bought 10 years before that for $4,700. That card sold in auction for $57,000. All the rest of the cards combined sold for another $108,000. Grand total, I sold my set for $165,000, about $500 a card.
That's...
Now, 2 weeks ago on May 5th at Heritage Auctions,
Yeah.
another specimen of card number 1 in the grade that I had it, which was Gem Mint 10, sold for, I kid you not, $687,000.
Jeez.
You could look up the video on YouTube to see, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And some of the other cards in the set, which I sold for then record prices of ranging from $4,000 to $6,000 and $7,000.
Yeah.
Some of them sold for between $15,000 and $40,000 each.
Oh, geez, they just keep going up.
Yep. So the set that I sold for $165,000 2.5 years ago, the full set, a small portion of the cards, maybe a dozen, by themselves sold for close to $850,000. The whole set would have easily sold for in excess of $1.3 million now. Almost 10 times what I sold it for back then.
Yeah. It's hard to tell when to pull the trigger on that stuff.
Who knew?
Yep.
And the reason I say who knew is because years ago, before I sold the Star Wars set, I sold a Star Wars Wonder Bread set, which was only 16 cards. And at the time, I sold it for $20,000 before eBay and PayPal fees. And the reason the card was sold for that much is because The Mandalorian came out at that point in time. And prices were jumping. And I really wasn't passionate about that 16-card set. So I sold a set that normally should only be worth around $3,000. I sold it for $20,000 before fees. Several months later, the prices dropped like a rock, and that same set in total was only selling for around $3,000 to $4,000. I got out at the right time, but it doesn't mean you always get out at the right time. Sometimes you need to wait. The problem is you can't wait indefinitely for a number of reasons. A, you don't want to keep carrying this baggage with you every place you go to, and B, it's a liability.
Yep.
So I made a profit back in 2023. I could have made a hell of a profit had I waited 2.5 years later. In fact, an extra 1.1 million profit and then some.
Oof, yeah.
That's retirement money.
Yeah, it's tough because I've traded in video games thinking at the time, oh, I got a good deal, and then a few years later, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Well, on video games, I'm sure you've seen Karl Jobst's video exposés on graded video games.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Especially with some of them having like a 99-point-something% drop in price.
Yep.
I never got involved with graded video games, and I thank God I never did.
Yeah.
Because of what happened. It was collusion like you would not believe.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking that when you talked about how much something went for an auction, my first thought is, well, was it a real sale? Because apparently they were able to pull this fake auction sale over that Super Mario Brothers.
Yep.
So.
Well, I mentioned to you the other day, I decided on a whim, and I only wanted to do this this once and once only, I decided to buy graded copies of 3 specific magazines. I bought graded copies of 3 different Sports Illustrated issues. The first was the very first appearance of the 1991 Dream Team. I bought that in a grade of 9.2. And I bought the very first Hulk Hogan cover on Sports Illustrated, also in a 9.2. And I bought the very first appearance on the Sports Illustrated cover of Caitlin Clark, who's kind of like a female WNBA phenomenon.
Yeah, I know who she is.
I got that in a 9.8, and it only cost like $360. And I figured, what the hell? Let me get this one. This girl's like the female version of Stephen Curry. Let me, because she sinks baskets like there's no tomorrow. So let me just get this and see where it goes. And if it doesn't, then so what? I have it anyway.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome. One last bit. Once again, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want, but since we're talking about your collection anyway, do you have any funny stories about that scene in Chasing Ghosts, behind the scene stuff where you're showing the collection off?
Well, not really, but I was prompted by Mike Verrecchia to unpack my Soriyama piece. That was the one that in Chasing Ghosts I said you could look at it upside down if you want.
Yeah.
He pushed me to unpack that, and you could see I was unboxing it.
Right, I remember that.
That was in a sealed case all those years that I had it. I never had the need to take it out. And he pushed me to unpack it just for the purpose of the movie.
Just for the movie, yeah.
To get some, pop in his movie. He wanted to show it. And of course, what I should have done is I should have not showcased my collection, but you could hardly not see it because it was just so visible in my room when you saw all those boxes all over the place.
It's,
yeah. And it was also a part of, what I collected back then. Back in that era, I wasn't so much collecting trading cards. It was largely artwork and to a lesser extent certain comic books, and by that I mean vintage ones, which I also got rid of. But I honestly, in retrospect, I should have said no and just not showed my art collection because, like I tried to get TG to avoid, for sake of integrity, tracking things, games like Bachelor Party and Beat 'em and Eat 'em.
Right.
Why do you have to have a film about video gaming when you have this content in it? I should have put my foot down further, but I guess the exuberance of being part of the documentary and not having a big enough spine back then to say no, I just said, what the hell, let me show it to him.
Just went along with it, yeah. And then you got people like me asking about it years later and stuff, yeah.
Not only that, if you've ever listened to read the posts on social media, especially on scenes from Chasing Ghosts that are shown on YouTube, clip. If you look up Robert's art collection, you're going to see a bunch of them. The posts that are there about me, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen some of them. Yeah, they're fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And admittedly, it's kind of silly stuff, but at some point you just got to own it and be like, yeah.
But the reality is, there's people they collect a number of things, and you don't question what they collect. Mostly it's innocuous stuff. I mean, there's guys out there that collect Playboy magazines. I don't collect that.
It's true.
I never wanted to. I never will. I happen to collect the artwork, and that's it.
That's true.
I'm not the only one that collects this stuff. I'm not even close to the only one.
Oh, well, I believe that.
And I have a friend that's got 5 times as many pieces as me. He literally has some wallpaper in his entire house, all several stories of it. His wife tolerates it, but barely. But I'm not the only one that collects it. And also, depending on what you collect, it could be very profitable.
I believe that.
But honestly, I am planning long-term to part ways with, all but maybe 5% of my collection at best. Maybe, 50 to 100 pieces, if even that much. And the rest of them, I'm not going to look back. If they find a new home, they find a new home. I'm not going to care. You
might be able to get a premium, honestly, on some of it, being like, this was part of Robert's collection.
Well, no one really cares about that. It's not like, there's a premium for being part of the Mile High Comics book collection, which is a well-known and documented collection of 22,000 plus comics.
Oh, right, yeah.
My collection is pretty small and insignificant in comparison, and I only had one piece that was worth more than 10,000. All the rest of my pieces are worth less than 10,000. I think I got one piece that's in the 4,000 range, and a couple that are over 1,000. The vast majority are under $1,000. So my collection is small potatoes.
All right.
So really, no one would care. The only thing they care about is who's the artist, what's the subject matter. That's all.
That's true. Well, people care enough to, because I've gotten the responses. People like ask them about the stuff. So there's at least some degree of care that, you know, people find it interesting. I think just because you talked about it in the movie, I think.
Yeah, the one thing I liked about collecting the art was not so much as owning it, but I liked more so than anything commissioning art, which is my favorite aspect of the hobby. That's when you arrange to have the artist of your choice based on the nature of what you want done. They bring your vision to life. Like I wanted to have, in one particular piece, I wanted to have a character called Panther, who's a female character, brunette-haired, wears blue jungle bikini attire with black spots on it, kind of like a cheetah or leopard. And I wanted to have her sitting on a stone throne in a jungle, kind of like King Louie from the Jungle Book, the cartoon. And I wanted to have surrounding her 3 different types of tigers: a white tiger, a Sumatran tiger, and a Bengal tiger. Tigers which would never be in the same location together. And I wanted to have a 3D effect of the jungle where, as you look deeper into the picture, it looks like it's going further back. And the artist, Ed Lloyd Gregg, did that exactly the way I told him, and it was one of his favorite pieces that he ever did. And it was that type of involvement in collecting art that I enjoyed the most, which was the commission process.
Right, yeah. Get something unique.
So when someone looks at a piece like that, they don't know the story behind it. I have another piece of a Texas-based model named Molly, who's no longer active. I had her in an evening dress. It was a picture of her. I never actually met the person. And I had a car replica from the Franklin Mint called the Duesenberg 20 Grand sent to an artist named Eric Drudlin, a charcoal-based artist from Germany. And what he did is he digitally photographed the car, and then he was able to, with his computer software, kind of rotate it around and scale the image of Molly in front of the car so as to keep it proportionate with the car. So it looked like I had her wearing that particular evening dress in front of the 1920s Duesenberg 20 Grand car. And he did that whole thing in charcoal, and it was also one of his favorite pieces to do, because he never did another piece involving a car again. And it was a fairly good seller in terms of prints of the piece, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I work with an artist in terms of drawing a piece, I come up with something that not only is what I want, but it's also something that benefits the artist from sales of prints of the piece, because it's like making money on top of money for something they already did.
Right, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a couple of artists that, Barbara Jensen from Florida was another one. I used to commission pinup works from her, and a couple of my pieces became some of her most requested pinup prints. And it's nice to know that my vision was appreciated by so many others.
Yeah.
So when people look at my collection and, you know, they come up with this, oh, that's porn, that's that. Why would people spend that? Well, you know, that's nice to have your opinion on. You're entitled to it, but you really don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, that exhausted all of my questions. Thank you so much. Did you have any final thoughts? Any other topic I didn't ask you about that you just want to talk about for a bit, or?
Well, for starters, how long were we on the phone so far?
Oh, sorry, what?
How long have we been on this call so far?
Oh, including our little pre-check where I did a couple tests, 3 hours, 46 minutes. So we've been a while. The recording is about 3 hours and 40 minutes right now.
Oh, that's almost the entire speaking portion of my deposition.
Oh gosh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We've been going.
Speaking of my, the deposition, I will tell you
Yeah.
that I will never forgive Billy Mitchell for having me waste a vacation day
Yeah.
to give the deposition, for starters.
Yep.
But what I do wish, and I fervently wish this, is that people have a chance to learn what it is that I said at that deposition, because chances are this is not stuff that Billy Mitchell wants to have made public. Because it's one thing that he does not like, and I think you said this in your own website, is he does not like evidence.
Yeah, it's true.
And that is not unlike a certain jackass who's in charge of the country.
Yeah, yep.
Another thing that I said, I say they all have in common, they don't like evidence.
Yep. I'll take a look. One reason I haven't just put depositions up is because some of them contain like personal info, and I don't want to. And I'm wary about just trying to edit out of a PDF, because PDF can have metadata or some other things where you think you're editing out the text, but then the text is also, buried under something.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's really only for that reason. I have wanted long term to do like a thing where I start going through and publishing a bunch of this backlog of stuff. I can expedite if you're interested in me reviewing that deposition transcript and see if everything's okay. Look into expediting that going public.
If I'm ever sent a transcript of it, of course I can read through it and find out if anything should be redacted, like personal information. I doubt that there's much personal information on there outside of the very beginning where they say, who are you, and you have to identify yourself. There's very little personal information beyond that.
All right. Yeah, let's. I'll send you what I have, and also since we talked about that All Games, what was it? All Games Interactive show.
All Games Radio.
All Games Radio. That was it. Yeah. I kind of want to go back to my stuff and see if I could find that copy I have and maybe publish that at the same time as this.
If you could find that paneled composite of that cartoon they did of Roy Shildt saying "Let me finish."
Oh, that too, yeah.
But if you could find the digitized vocalizations of Roy going into his little tirade, I think a lot of people would just love to hear that. It's honestly, it's priceless.
It really is. It's legendary. Okay, I put those down as notes. That's my entire notepad that was filled with questions, and now it's just those three things: the Roy Shildt cartoon, your deposition, and All Games Radio.
Well, what you should do is you should make a stuffed Roy Shildt, have that "Let me finish" thing inserted with the Pony device, and give it away as a freebie to someone. But since you're not making any money on it, you can't hold it against you for doing that.
That's true. Yeah, just pull the string. Let me finish.
Yep. Have fun at parties with the "Let me finish" doll.
If I ever do streaming more, I definitely want to clip that and use that as like a stream clip. You just play every so often. Let me finish.
Well, you've seen that on podcasts as well. All of a sudden, they press a certain thing, and a little video, a little verbal blurb comes up right across. That would be perfect. The "Let me finish" blurb.
Exactly. That would be all timer for video game.
And it's memorable.
Yep. Oh.
I'm sure Roy won't mind because it'll give him some media pop in the process.
That's true. Yeah, people will be talking about him again.
With Roy, there's no such thing as bad media. All media is good media.
Yep. Sir, thank you. So you've been a champ. You've been sitting here for 4 hours answering all my questions. You're amazing, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, remember, I did 49 and a half hours standing playing Star Wars. Granted, that was 42 years ago now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you're not young like that anymore. Neither am I.
No, 4 hours, not a big deal.
Awesome.
Happy to do it.
I'll pass this along to you for review, and we'll get everything. We'll do all that. Get all that stuff put up soon.
And I hope my voice came across a little bit better than the last interviews. Apologies again for the previous ones. My voice is what it is.
Oh yeah, no problem. I see the little green bar going, so it looks like everything's fine on my end. And our second test seemed pretty good, so I think this turned out well.
All right, well, good luck with that, and let me know when the link is up so I can actually listen in on it myself. I'd love to see people's comments on it.
Yeah, we'll do. I'm gonna take a nap before I do anything else, but I'll get that. I'll start working on that after the nap.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Thank you, sir. Have a good one. Have a fantastic one.